The rand is at 18.19 to the dollar, 23.54 to the pound, 19.80 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $71.12 a barrel.
And in the traffic, we've got heavy delays on the N1 North. This is between Winnie Mandela Drive and Rivonia Road. That's due to peak time delays. However, if you are traveling on the N1 North towards the city of Tshwane, delays from the Baklu interchange towards Olifantsfontein Road, and there's still roadworks taking place in Tembisa along the R21 North right after the R25, causing heavy delays.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers and thunder showers. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 22 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has welcomed IPID's probe into KwaZulu-Natal's police top boss Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi for allegedly interfering in the arrest of a correctional services senior official.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
What are the matters that matter to you?
702 listens.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang, happy Monday. Welcome to the Clement Manyathela Show. I hope you had a wonderful weekend and I hope your day is going well so far. Thank you for being with us here on 702. You do know what we have to start with this morning, right? Whether Abel likes it or not and whether you like it or not. Let's go. Oh man, Pirates. Why art thou so wonderful? We have proven once again that we're still very much in the PSL title race. We have now beaten Sundowns, the guys who rarely ever get beaten lately, 2-1. What that means, my friends, is that we're now 15 points behind these guys at second place with 4 games in hand. If we win those games, we could cut the gap to just about 3 or so points. And I believe that it's possible. And I did predict this on Friday while speaking to Cindy Poluta on the breakfast show that we're going to win 2-1. Remember that?
So Orlando Pirates have a huge game on Sunday at FNB Stadium. Strange venue. They have been talking about it, why they're hosting at FNB, but I think it's because of the magnitude of the event, right?
Yeah, I'm hopeful.
Hopeful.
Yeah, we're gonna pull through. We're gonna show some strength on the pitch.
Like a draw.
No.
You'll be happy with the draw.
2-1.
2-1 to Pirates.
Win. Yeah.
Are you working on Monday morning here?
Yes, and you can bring 1,000 rand.
Won't bet money. I'll never bet money. But I think that's a very big claim.
You think?
100%. I think it's going to be a great game, though.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I would be rich if I was collecting money. The last time I bet with Mendy, and guys, so you know, Mendy still hasn't paid me. Please, can you guys put pressure on her? Maybe hashtag Mendy pay Clement, because she still hasn't paid me. And I won the last bet. And Cindy didn't know is that she's talking to the prophet. Yeah, you can call me Papa Clement or the major one, the major prophet. I think I've predicted several results over the years on this show. And I think it's probably time that I use this prophecy to win some lotto. Honestly, it's got to benefit me somehow. Let me know what you thought of the game on 011-883-070. 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 0727021702. Did you watch that dramatic opening as well of the Grand Prix of the year? I woke up very early yesterday to catch it. There was so much drama from the formation lab, a dramatic start to the race because of the rain. A few cars were retired. Carlos Sainz, my goodness, he debuted at Williams. It was sad to see him retire the car. But basically, the summary of that race, and I tweeted the same thing yesterday, was that Lando Norris deserved the win. He was brilliant. This man is on course to win this season. Watch out for him. I think we're about to enter a Norris subsequent season of wins. I felt so bad for Oscar Piastri. That's his home Grand Prix, and for mistakes to happen like that, and for you to be out, it's bad, because then that pushed him lower. One thing that his team was weird on, though, was when they told him not to race Lando Norris. Remember, when he was like 2 seconds or so behind Lando, if not one, only to tell him, oh, now you are free to race, because he had made a mistake and he was far behind Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton, I think Lewis Hamilton has to start racing. He better get on with racing. I'm tired of excuses. I know he's still learning the car. There was a practice session before the season started. This past weekend, there was practice and qualifying as well. We need him to compete now. I'm tired of the excuses. He said he needed a faster car. He has it now. He needs to perform. No more excuses. And I do think that he was failed by the strategy of Ferrari yesterday. And I know some people disagree with me on this, but I don't understand why Ferrari didn't take a gamble with Lewis when he led the race. I think he could have used his experience to navigate the wet track. A gamble is a gamble. Or at the very least, they should have pitted him much earlier. That was a moment there for Ferrari that needed strategic direction. I was also happy for Andrea Antonelli. He had a brilliant debut at Mercedes. And of course, Max Verstappen was just great, as always. What are your reflections on that opening Grand Prix season? Give me a call or send me a WhatsApp voice note. That's the sporting front. On the news front, our ambassador to the US has been expelled, Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool. He's actually coming back home soon, if he's not already on a flight, because he said something which I think is undiplomatic, and I wonder what your thoughts are. He said something undiplomatic about the president of his host country. And I wonder if you think this punishment of expelling him is actually equal to the crime. And if you agree with how the US handled it, do you? I'm going to play you a clip of what he said in a moment, and I would like your thoughts on it. But at 10 o'clock, we'll speak to the International Relations Department about this expulsion and what's the next way forward. How does our government respond? At 10:30, we're going to continue with our series about companies that have survived scandals and controversies, and we're going to be looking at where they are now and how are they recovering. I've asked you to share your suggestions with us. You can send an email on cm@702.co.za if there's a company you want us to look at. So far, we looked at KPMG, spoke to the CEO there. We looked at Eskom, spoke to the board chair of Eskom, and today we're going to be talking to the chief executive officer at Siemens Sub-Saharan Africa. Who can forget what Siemens was involved in? One of the biggest corporate corruption scandals in history. It was accused of paying an estimated $1.4 billion in illicit funds to secure contracts in multiple countries, including South Africa. And over the years, the company has worked hard to rebrand itself. Where's that work? We'll find out from the chief executive officer. At 11 o'clock, we're going to wrap up the show with our Family Matters feature. And today we'll be discussing parenting a child with special needs. How have you been managing if that's a child you've been raising? There are children who require specific attention because of learning difficulties, emotional and behavioral difficulties, mental or cognitive disorders, physical disabilities or medical conditions, whether it's cerebral palsy or Down syndrome. So we're going to bring in an expert who will help us navigate that journey of raising a child with special needs. If you need some tips, you need some advice, please feel free to give us a call or share your story with us at 11 o'clock on our Family Matters feature. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856
92.7
and 106 FM.
Good morning, Clement and your listeners. Clement, I just want to say I'm very happy with Orlando Pirates finally beating Sundowns. It's been a long time, man. 10 games, it's no funny business. I also think this is Sundowns' first defeat of the season. So we've come a long way, and I'm just happy, and I just hope we build from this momentum. I just hope the team doesn't disappoint me, building a big team like Sundowns, and then we end up losing to a small team. I just hope they keep the momentum and take the title race to the wire. Just what I'm wishing, and hopefully we can win it in the end. Thanks, Clement. Great show as always.
Good morning, Clement. Good morning, Clement. Yeah. You are very partial. When Sundowns wallop Pirates 4-1, you didn't play that song. Kabu Yellow. You seem to be very partial. Anyway, we lost, but we're still hopeful for the league title. Thank you. I'm off from Dobsonville.
Hi, Abel. Flores here from the Western Cape. If you're looking for the meaning of the word favoritism, then you will see the name Clement next to it. Bye.
I'm just excited, guys. When you guys are excited about Chiefs or Sundowns winning, we allow you. So allow us.
Morning, Clement. I also woke up early to catch the race. It was chaotic. I mean, from the word go, it was just so chaotic, and I could tell from there that, okay, we are going to be heartbroken. Nonetheless, I think that we must look out for Oscar. Oscar is going to give Lando a big, big headache. I promise you. People are putting their bets on Lando, but Oscar is really going to give Lando a headache. I mean, see how he was almost about to overtake, and then they put team orders. Can you imagine how many times that is going to happen? Anyway, my beloved Ferrari. We have to give them time. I think the car is there. It just needs a little bit of adjustments to our guy, and they will be back in the race and in contention for the constructors. I'm not sure about a win, but for constructors, they must watch out for Ferrari.
Yeah, I don't think we've got time, guys. And I think, and please don't get me wrong. I'm still a big supporter of Lewis Hamilton, but I have a healthy relationship with my fan base, or whatever you want to call it, with him. I can criticize him. He's going to frustrate me, and he's going to make me happy. At this moment, I'm just tired of excuses. And I've said this to you last year. I just think Lewis has so many things going on. Can he easy up on fashion? We'll see later. All these other things. Let's focus on the game. We need you to win just the last season. Just one season. You have set the world record. You can go do whatever you want and retire. But that needs specific focus. And I feel like we always come up with excuses for him. Oh, the car is not good. Okay, he's got a fast car now. How do you explain that? And yes, I know there are other metrics here. Ferrari failed him with strategy yesterday. But can we be real here? Antonelli he debuted in Mercedes. He was brilliant. There are some people who also are driving cars for the first time, and they're doing okay. So we don't have time for Lewis Hamilton to be learning a car. There was practice before the season started where they were testing cars. There was practice and qualifying this past weekend. He needs to get on with it. I didn't buy those Ferrari t-shirts that are so expensive. For what? Let go of my Mercedes merchandise. No ways, man.
Yo, good morning, Mr. Clay. Hope you're well. I was so disappointed with Ferrari this weekend, particularly with Lewis. I understand the conditions were very tricky. I understand that McLaren is extremely fast this season. They are just continuing from last year. But Norris, under those same conditions, he did very well. Max did very well under the same conditions, a car that is not that fast. I really thought that Ferrari were sandbagging and we were going to see fire this weekend. Oh, I'm so disappointed. Even Russell was in front of Lewis, both Lewis and Leclerc. Oh, Lord. I hope this is not a precursor for a season. Because I already have my Ferrari merch. Hector and Madrid.
Good morning, Clement. The Formula One. Yeah, I 100% agree with you when it comes to that Lewis now needs to pull up his socks and basically start racing. Yes, we do understand that it's first time in the car, driving in a race, but now we literally need him to showcase his skill. Yeah, we all woke up on Sunday, some of us at 5 o'clock, to be at the race, to watch the race at 6 o'clock in the morning, and people were awake, people came out. So there's a whole lot of support for Ferrari, a whole lot of support for Lewis Hamilton, and we just need him to perform now. And congratulations once again to Norris. Thanks. Simpure here, Santon.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
21 minutes after 9 o'clock. All right. The U.S. Ambassador, Ibrahim Rasool, is coming back home. There are comments that he made a couple of days ago that led to his expulsion. If you missed it, here's what he said.
I think what Donald Trump is launching is an assault on incumbency, those who are in power, by mobilizing a supremacism against the incumbency at home, and I think I've illustrated abroad as well. So in terms of that, the supremacist assault on incumbency, we see it in the domestic politics of the great, again, movement as a response, not simply to a supremacist instinct, but to very clear data that shows great demographic shifts in the USA, in which the voting electorate in the USA is projected to become 48% white, and that the possibility of a majority of minorities is looming on the horizon. And so that needs to be factored in so that we understand some of the things that we think are instinctive, nativist, racist things. I think that there's data that, for example, would support that would go to this wall being built, the deportation movement, etc., etc. So I think I mentioned that.
Yeah, so he was speaking during a webinar with Mistra, and I think what he said was undiplomatic. I think it's an own goal. He basically said that Trump was leading a white supremacist movement in America and the world. Whether you agree with what he said or not, that is considered a breach of diplomatic protocol for an ambassador to publicly comment on or pass judgment about the internal affairs of the host country. Diplomacy relies on tact, on neutrality, on respect for sovereignty. Ambassadors are there to represent their own nation's interest. They're there to foster relations. They're there to navigate the different difficult issues discreetly, not to critique the host government or its policies, especially doing so openly. I was looking at the Vienna Convention this morning on diplomatic relations, and I see it emphasizes avoiding interference in the host state's affairs. That's Article 41, 40 or 41, if I'm not mistaken. So I think he crossed the line, more so because he's dealing with President Donald Trump's administration. He should have known better. These are uncharted waters. Dealing with a president like Donald Trump is not like dealing with any other president. So I think he should have been more cautious of what he says, because this administration has been wilding. It's waiting for our ambassador to make a mistake and they will run with it. But as an ambassador, you can't attack a sitting president of your host country. That's part of training as a diplomat, even the language that you use. And I think that's why our government isn't fully going on defense mode for him. Have you realized? Look at the statement from the presidency. Look at what the Department of International Relations are saying. And I wonder if you think our government is leaving him high and dry by not retaliating. How do you think the government should be retaliating? I mean, we didn't expel the US ambassador to South Africa when he lied about South Africa giving arms to Russia to use in Ukraine, did we? And I say lied because that's what government effectively found in its investigation. That whatever Ambassador Bridget said didn't happen. Instead of expelling him, what did we do? Then Minister Naledi Pandor invited him over and he was simply reprimanded. And the president at the time chose this is a constructive approach that we must take because it's going to let South Africa remain engaged with the US. Sure, that's great, but that's not the courtesy that we're being afforded now. In this case, they've just expelled him. And I hear that he was on the verge of engaging with strategic officials in the Trump administration. But let's be honest, they were already watching him like a hawk. Remember, this is a man who's always been vocal about his support for Palestine. That's the man who still supports Palestine. He's always been clear of his views of what's happening in the Middle East. And I think at some point, this was going to happen. Even if he didn't speak at this webinar, there was going to be a thing that they wait for where they're going to go, that's it, we got him. I mean, this is someone who was an incredible ambassador. Remember his first stint as ambassador to the US. He was decent. He was great. That's why he was reappointed now. And maybe this time around he failed to read the room. But also maybe this time around things were done weirdly by the host country. Because, I mean, the US is doing this expulsion in also an undiplomatic way. It's a humiliating manner. And I suspect the US just wants to make an example of South Africa. It wants to send a message, probably to the rest of the developing world, that there are consequences for challenging US interests and their international or political agenda. I think this is so much more about that than anything else. And I wonder when the next person who's appointed and their person has to go present their credentials there, will the US want to have a say? I'm not sure, in diplomatic circles how that works. And I'll ask the Department of International Relations at 10 o'clock. Are they going to want to have a say? Are they going to go and check, this person has said something, has criticized America before, therefore we don't think he's suited here in the country? It's going to be really difficult to navigate these diplomatic relations with the US. I'm interested in your thoughts on 011-883-0702. You can send a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. I do think that there are processes that get followed. Normally, the US could have communicated to our government about their unhappiness about the comments that the ambassador has made. They could have called him into a meeting to explain himself. But that's not where we are. We're already dealing with hostility. That's why I'm saying, yes, it may not have been this webinar. Let's say the ambassador didn't speak here. I bet you there was going to be a moment where they go and find that and say, we got them. You are wrong here and we want you out of this country. This is sending our relations with the US to a completely new low. And how we respond is absolutely going to matter. Let's start with Fabian, who's calling us from Annandale. Fabian, what are your thoughts on this? Good morning.
Clement, the US is not what it used to be. The rest of the world is also not what it used to be. If Trump can make outrageous statements calling South Africa a genocide, we should be able to call him a fascist and a white supremacist. Now, the US government is very immature, and Trump is not a normal, usual person. So it's not the diplomacy as usual, right? The US government is very immature because our ambassador criticized an individual. He criticized Trump. But the government is acting very immaturely by suspending him. Behavior breeds behavior. And we should stop making the US this giant that cannot be challenged. The world is not what it used to be. We can challenge them. Yemen has attacked them. And I think the rest of the world must follow.
What do you mean by follow, Fabian?
We should challenge them. We shouldn't say that
challenge
this
them.
is a giant. We should challenge them. I'm not saying we need to go to war, but we should challenge them at every aspect in politics.
I hear you, Fabian. And honestly, that's how things are supposed to be. That's why I've often spoken on the show about beware of the danger of allowing ourselves to be bullied. Because there are many ways that countries do that. They don't do it by coming to say, Cyril Ramaphosa, you must do this. No, there's soft bullying. They can easily just tell you there's a bomb in Sandton City. And they do it on a month end. The most busiest economic time. And I'm not suggesting that's what the US has done in the past. Yeah? I'm just giving an example here. They'll say that bomb in Sandton, the middle of Sandton. That's the most busiest economic. You know what happened that weekend? People don't go shopping. The economy becomes disrupted. The Minister of State Security will come down, do a walkabout to try and assure people that you are safe, it's okay. And then you hear our government say, they didn't even give us that intelligence. Why? Ask yourself that. And when we talk about soft bullying, that's that. Or just lie and say, oh, South Africa is busy giving arms to Russia to fight in Ukraine. Boosh! There's an explosion. How dare South Africa do that? There's a response. You do an investigation, you find that never happened. What do you call that? Your ambassador makes a mistake. And I do think it's undiplomatic, it's wrong. I support Ibrahim Rasool as a South African, but that doesn't mean that I don't see the mistakes he makes. But even with that, not even a letter. I wonder if they've already sent a formal communication to our government about this ambassador's expulsion, or it was just announced on Twitter. All of these things, my friends, are meant to send a message. They don't just happen. They really don't just happen. So how do we respond to this superpower? It's 9:32. Sfiso, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has welcomed IPID's probe into KwaZulu-Natal's top boss, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, for allegedly interfering in the arrest of a correctional services senior official. Addressing the recent controversy in a statement, Mchunu has refuted reports that he lodged a complaint against Mkhwanazi. IPID says a member of the public reported the provincial commissioner. The Auditor General has cast doubts on Joburg City Power's ability to stay afloat after its latest financial statement shows its liabilities now exceed its total assets. City Power has received a scathing report by the AG highlighting financial mismanagement. The utility under the Johannesburg municipality, which supplies electricity to major households and businesses in the city, says it will look into the report. And US President Donald Trump says he plans to speak to his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin tomorrow about ending the war in Ukraine. He also says discussions are already ongoing about dividing up certain assets between the warring parties. US officials are hopeful that a Ukraine-Russia ceasefire deal could be reached in weeks after Washington proposed a halt in fighting in the 3-year war after talks in Saudi Arabia, which Kyiv accepted. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 10 or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Leaving Bryanston, Randburg area, heading towards Sandton, traffic remains hectic at this hour. There's an accident seen on Winnie Mandela Drive that's near Republic, causing more than a 30-minute delay all the way from Main Road. As a result, the traffic coming into Winnie Mandela Drive, that's Peter Place, Republic, as well as Bryanston Drive and Ballyclare. Traffic heavily backed up on those routes, so avoid Bryanston, Randburg coming into Sandton. That's Winnie Mandela Drive at this hour. Rather use Beyers Nordia, that's coming through from the Randburg area, and then head into Sandton using from Fisher Drive or even Jan Smuts Avenue. Otherwise, the rest of 702 Land has settled down pretty nicely. No other serious accidents have been reported on our highways. Just slow-moving traffic, though, in the Tembisa area. This is the R21 northbound between the R25 Popfontein off-ramp and the Olifantsfontein Road. Also in the Tembisa area, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic on Pretoria Road. That's between Ruth First Street and Olifantsfontein Road. If you come across any other traffic issues, please SMS us on 31702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
Have you had conversations with the respective officers, particularly SASSA? What response have you had to your request of a further extension of the deadline?
I have not spoken to anyone yet. I have brought it up in the interviews. That's the only way that I can actually reach out to them.
What advice do you have for the social grant recipients?
They will then have to go to the retailers to do the cardless transaction. I don't know how that's going to work. We still need clarity on that one. Or they will have to go to a post office to go do a withdrawal.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
Hey, remember when our office turned into an indoor swimming pool from the flood incident we had?
Oh yeah, feels like it was just yesterday. Luckily, we are with My Way Business Insurance and they kept us afloat despite the soaked carpets.
Talk about an insurer that's got your back no matter the situation.
Agreed. With My Way, we can weather any storm with the ultimate confidence.
Cover your building and office contents hassle-free with MyWay Business Insurance. Visit myway.co.za for a quote and do business your way. MyWay is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
Diabetes has become the leading cause of deaths in South Africa. Every hour, at least 3 people die of diabetes in this country. This means that in a year, we lose more than 30,000 people to this dreaded disease. This is a silent pandemic which requires active participation by all of us. You may be asking, what can I do as an individual? Limit intake of foods and drinks high in sugar and be physically active. Eat right for a better life. Foods high in sugar, fat and salt can lead to obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease and certain cancers. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Health.
While we at Decofern Furniture love traveling the world, Guten Tag, Bonjour,
Ni hao, Selamat siang,
to find you the best value furniture, there really is no place like home.
How's it? Marlo! Unjani?
To celebrate the best country in the world, Decofern Furniture is offering up to 35% off locally made furniture. Plus, price drops on already amazing specials. In-store now or online at decofernsa.co.za.
702 took a close look at the 53rd Annual Nedbank and Old Mutual Budget Speech Competition. And here are the highlights.
My experience has been great, to say the least. An opportunity of this magnitude is what any aspiring economist or economic student aims for. Nedbank and Old Mutual gave us the opportunity to exchange perspectives with some prominent economists, policymakers, and corporate leaders.
Sure.
Yeah, it's an opportunity I wouldn't have had I not entered the competition.
The Nedbank and Old Mutual Budget Speech Competition. Empowering Africa's future leaders on 702.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
22 minutes before 10 o'clock. This is the 702 open line. We're taking your calls on 011-883-0702. I've been taking your voice notes about the sporting weekend. In fact, I forgot about Omdidam. If you did Omdidam this past Saturday, yeah. How was it? Congratulations. If you made it. If you didn't make it, that's also okay because it was quite tough. I got a message from someone on the WhatsApp line who says, Clement, about Omdidam Ultramarathon. I had a bad experience. My period started while I was already in the marathon. I ran the first 21 Ks, and it was just so hectic for me. I stopped, and I was helped by the ladies. Big ups to them. They really helped me. And I continued with the run, but I was quite embarrassed. I had to slow down until the finish. My goodness, the fact that you still managed to get to the finish, that's quite incredible. Yeah, we ran a 50-kilometer, this ultra marathon in Omdidam on Saturday. It was lovely. It was great, but it was also tough. Yeah, But I always say, if you have survived Sarki, then you're good. This is part of our training towards comrades in June. Also, Formula One and Pirates. I've also been getting your reflections this morning about that.
Good morning, Clement. Lindy, we're here from Johannesburg. I just want to take my words back. I don't know if my voice note got played on Friday after your prediction. I am a Orlando Pirates supporter, but I disputed the 2-1 prediction. So I want to take those words back and say, sorry, Clement, you were right. We are happy people. We won, and have a lovely week ahead. Thanks, Clement.
Hey, Clement, on this sports mix back now, man, give Lewis a chance, man. It is difficult. And if you listen to all the professionals, F1 drivers, is doing practice and qualifying and all those things is different than in a race, eh? Because the car setup is also different, and the steering, what is these? Let's call it the modes that you use to overtake, etc., etc. It's difficult. Give him 3-4 races, I think is going to be there. Yeah, on the soccer front, mixed bag for myself. Maybe you must tell me, man, because I'm not sure if we're going to be able to make this one. Liverpool. Yeah, they're stressing us out. Yeah, I'm just hopeful that the 12 points is going to be enough. And then, yes, on the Pirates front, let's hope. Yes, still a mountain to climb with the number of games that we have. And, yeah, Sundowns is a good team. But, yeah, hopefully those 3 points, hopefully they can get 2 draws and then we win the league as well. Sure, Pan in Brakpan.
I hope so too, Pan. I really hope so too. We're also talking about this decision by the US to expel our ambassador. Someone tweeted, let me read this tweet for you. It says, the irony is glaring. Washington's accusation of race baiting against South Africa feels like projection. This isn't about racial division. It's about bearing the ICJ case in controversy. The strategy is clear. Distract, discredit, and divert. And then I saw someone else saying that, Clement, I really think that flags must fly high, commending Ibrahim Rasool for his moral stand and incisive analysis of this racist Make America Great Again campaign. Yeah, look, that's why I said you can agree or disagree with Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool, but let's just be honest about where we find ourselves now. Is when you are in that position, right? You can look at the Vienna Convention, you can look at the training of ambassadors. This is what they train them to do. You do not want to find yourself in a situation where you are attacking the president of your host country. Even Ambassador Bridget, he didn't do that. He didn't do that. And I've interviewed him several times where I was trying to get his thoughts on what's happening here. And he's always said, that's not my place. He did go and lie about us giving arms to Russia based on the investigation the South African government did. But if you remember, he's always been very careful not to opine on internal policies of the host country. Your job is to navigate the waters. Your job is to try and find diplomacy as the solution. The Secretary of State in the US, Marco Rubio, tweeted this: South Africa's ambassador to the United States is no longer welcome in our great country. Ibrahim Rasool is a race-baiting politician who hates America and hates the President Trump. We have nothing to discuss with him, and so he's considered persona non grata, which is why I've asked the next person who replaces him, how easy or difficult is it going to be when we present those credentials to the US? Because they may very well say, give us some time, and they go check. If that person has maybe said something about the US before, where does that leave us? And how contrived and constrained and then is the next ambassador are going to be in how they manage those relations. Let's get your thoughts now. Naledi, are you calling us? Naledi, you are calling us from Rustenburg. You're live on air now. Good morning.
Morning, Clement. My contribution is regarding Mr. Rasool. I think our government must relax and calm the muddy waters and get somebody who's professional. That we've got the youngsters who went to university, did the diplomacy degrees and all those things. Get one who's not affiliated to any political party, who's neutral, who represents our country, and clean the mess which has been done. We all do mistakes. It's just that it happened. It already happened. But at the end of the day, it's our son. We welcome him. We all make mistakes. Let's get somebody. And honestly, the president might just wait. That person is going to mend all the mistakes which have done. We are doing business with the Americans, and you can't do work it alone. So youngsters are there who understand the psychology and everything, and they will know that they are going to deal with what kind of a president.
Do you have a youngster, Naledi?
Raise our flag high again.
Do you have a youngster in mind that you think could have helped, could navigate these waters much better?
You know, when you go to university, you learn theory. Practically, you learn on the road. But at the end of the day, they went to university. They learn. They know the ethics, what we are supposed to do and not. As much as you mentioned the Vienna Convention, the law, the rules and regulations of the ambassador. So Mr. Rashid messed it up somewhere. He was thinking of politics somewhere, and that's where the mistakes happen.
Yeah, politics and emotions are absolutely out of the way. Naledi, thank you for your thoughts in Rustenburg. I don't know if I agree with this perception of a young person who could have handled it better. I do think that you need someone with experience. I mean, the U.S. is who's our biggest trading partner? I think it's China, then the European Union. U.S. is number 3. Yeah, so it's China, then it's the European U.S. U.S. is number 3. That is still significant, though. So when you're dealing with a country where tensions are so high, where there's hostility, right? Where relations are at an all-time low, you need someone with experience. You need someone who's also not going to be bullied, who is able to be diplomatic in their tone while also still putting their foot down and standing firm on the protection of the sovereignty of the state that they represent. You need that. Kathy, you're calling from Senton. What are your thoughts?
Hi, morning, Clement. I'm glad I got in before Christmas today.
You're so spicy, Kathy. Go ahead.
No, he always says exactly what needs to be said. He's on point.
Yeah. Oh, God.
Okay. I think we need to understand where Ibrahim Rasool was and who he was talking to.
Mm-hmm.
He said he was on a Mistra webinar. Mistra is very specifically an academic think tank that comes from a particular framework, okay? And so he was talking to his audience. His audience was signed up and received the Zoom link, okay? It was 4 a.m. for him, and he began by saying, I was listening, so that's why I'm speaking like that. He began by saying, I'm going to cut out a lot of elegance, but look for your understanding, which was very genteel, and his turn of phrase was genteel. Then when he got into his analysis, he adopted what is now somewhat ultra in terms of its ideological position, but he used an ideological position that was part and parcel of the struggle, okay? And in his truth calling of MAGA being a white fascist organization, he's right. And Trump has come onto the global stage trumpeting that particular ideology, where we need to be very careful while adhering to understanding the norms of diplomacy and the protocols of diplomacy. Where we've got to be so careful is that this world has now taken on the normative bullying language of Twitter X and Trump, and we now accept that this is the way to behave. I searched mainstream media, well, okay, let me just say CNN yesterday, well, as an example, but even one of our local stations, where the norm now is, even though people may be anti-Trump's behavior, we're not really understanding that you don't run a country from from Truth Social or Twitter.
Absolutely.
You don't bully people. And we are now climbing into a man who knew his market, knew his audience, and frankly has an outmoded ideological framework, but was using it with the market that is used to that framework. So I think we mustn't confuse his what was almost in salon discussion, which Trump doesn't understand, with protocols, which I don't think Rasul would have used in a much more public forum.
Yeah.
Having said that, I think, yes, we do need somebody who understands Trump, but who on earth can?
Who
And
on earth
finally-
can do that, Kathy? Good
Yeah.
luck finding someone like that.
And finally, we've got to fight Trump. We've got to fight Trump. We've got to fight the norms of Trump. He's taken over our social media. He's used algorithms to win his last election through Cambridge Analytica. Please, as media, also, we've got to keep that top of mind. Thank you, as always, for your brilliance and your wonderful brain.
Thank you, Kathy, for your contribution. Who's going to? Kathy is right about Trump and finding someone who understands him. Who? You can send Thabo Mbeki, the president, there. You think Trump cares? It's only been how many weeks of the Trump administration? 6, 7, 8? And here we are. What's going to be happening in 2 years, guys? And I'm not just talking for us. I'm talking for Americans. I'm talking for the rest of the world. What's going to happen in 2 years' time? AB, you are in Durban, in KwaZulu-Natal. What do you think?
Well, on the last point, 27 psychiatrists have already issued a report saying that Trump is a nutcase. Anyway, my point is this. South Africa said to hell with diplomacy and not upsetting the U.S. by taking Israel to the ICJ. That got the pro-Israel lobby into overdrive and put us in the dog box immediately. Secondly, South Africa told Elon Musk that it is a no-no about his Starlink company operating in South Africa unless he abides by the black empowerment quota requirement. And that made him very, very angry. And then he said, remarkably, that South Africa is racist. And he has Trump's ear. Thirdly, Trump expressed his anger about the story that our government is busy confiscating white land. And the worst one is that Ibrahim Rasool has been waiting for an appointment at the White House, whereas the DA and AfriForum managed to meet the top Trump officials. I think in the end, Rasool went for broke and thought, well, to hell with Donald and Goofy. Goofy, of course, is Elon Musk. Stuffed the diplomacy, and he said what he said about white supremacy and knew he will be sent home. Finally, I think it's a good thing that Trump has said footsack to Europe and Canada and other countries, including South Africa, because there is the expression, necessity is the mother of invention, or the politics of unintended consequences, where more countries will break free from depending on the U.S. and its bullying.
Okay. AB, thank you for your call, my brother. Remember, next time we don't use those words on the radio. You use the F word. How else do you explain that other word that he used? It's more V, ne? V, yeah. V word, yeah. But yeah, we don't use that on the radio. So I apologize on behalf of AB for that. Okay, let's go to some WhatsApps now on 072 702 1702.
Clement, I totally believe that our ambassador, Ibrahim Rasool, was totally out of order. Not only did he neglect his diplomatic responsibilities, but he couldn't even bother to check the temperature of the relationship between Cyril and Trump. Okay, because he's there to mend the relationship, because that's what Cyril is doing so far, to mend the relationship between South Africa and the US. And this guy just brought the house down, you see, swimming totally opposite from Cyril Ramaphosa. Moses.
Morning, Clement. Ibrahim Rasool's expulsion has got nothing to do with anything except Israel. Trump is surrounded by South African expats or people with ties to South Africa who are Israeli supporters and Israeli yes men like Elon Musk. And that's all that this has got anything to do with. When the American ambassador, Ruben Brigitte, told lies about that Russian ship, do you remember that? He lied about that arms deal or whatever, and nothing ever happened to him. He lied. He flat out lied. Never presented any proof. We didn't go and expel him from the country and so on. America is throwing its weight around because they're trying to send a message that, oh, look, we have Israel's back.
Nevertheless, whatever the ambassador said, probably he knew very well that the horse had bolted. He knew Trump was about to pull the trigger one way or the other. He was bound to find any reason for that, considering his temperament right now and his attitude towards South Africa. So I think the ambassador spoke out the truth because he knew there was nothing to save anymore. He just had to go out there and tell it as it is, because he is not lying in a way. I mean, I don't think he is. It's just that, I mean, like you are saying, he, as an ambassador, you cannot talk like that about your host. But when the hold has bolted, I mean, what's the point? What are you holding back for?
Good morning, Clement and the team, 702 and Clem. I fully concur with your utterances pertaining to the ambassador's comments. I understand that potentially he was trying to denounce Trump personally, but ultimately you denounce Trump, you are shooting at the entire US. We can afford that. For an ambassador, I was actually anticipating him to know better. You don't just say things glibly, without having thought through what it is you want to put across, especially as a diplomat. No, man. Joel from Kempton Park, have a splendid Monday.
Yeah, Joel, and especially also because you are dealing with a different country. Like as I said earlier, this is the United States of America, and there's a new leader in charge. So there's so many things you need to manage. So things that you wouldn't ordinarily think of if you were in, I don't know, Australia or one of the European countries. You need to think carefully about them now. And I think that's where the miscalculation was. But I do also think that we owe Ambassador Rasool some appreciation. Right? I don't think you need to throw him out, and just leave him hanging dry. We need to show him some appreciation. He tried. I remember I interviewed him the day he was announced as ambassador. We should maybe find that clip, Abel. And I said to him, do you actually realize how difficult a task you have? I'll play that clip for you. And even whoever is going to take over from him, it's not going to be hunky-dory. It's going to be tough. So pray for whoever replaces Ambassador Rasool.
702 delivers on the matters that matter to you.
And what matters to you matters to us.
That's why we want to hear from you.
What you love about 702.
What you think we can do better.
Send a WhatsApp voice note
to 072 702 1702.
Take the survey on primemediaplus.com
or email contact@702.co.za with your ideas and comments.
Your input will allow us to deliver more of what matters to you.
702 listens.
Let's walk the talk.
Go to primemediaplus.com for more.
Dear Journal, day 4642 of trying to be an adult. I miss when being a millennial meant I was young, dumb, and broke. Now, it just means I'm old, out of touch, and, you guessed it, still broke.
Aggressively realizing your age? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's simple and like 19 Rand a day, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
Some roads challenge you, some loads test you, some terrains dare you.
Good, because the new GW MP300 lives for the challenge.
A new 2.4-liter turbo diesel, 135 kilowatts, 480 Newton meters, and up to 3.5-ton towing capacity Bring the load, the mud, and the mountains. The all-new GWM P300 from $6,999 per month. Bring it on. Visit gwm.coza for T's and C's and to book a test drive. Go with more. Go with GWM.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct. To give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has welcomed IPID's probe into KwaZulu-Natal's police top boss, Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi, for allegedly interfering in the arrests of a correctional services senior official. Addressing the recent controversy in a statement, Mchunu has refuted reports that he lodged the complaint against Mkhwanazi. IPID says a member of the public reported the provincial commissioner. Police Minister spokesperson Kamokhelo Mokhotsi says the watchdog has the right to investigate complaints against any police officials.
At all material times, the Ministry of Police works to uphold the rule of law and will do everything to strengthen mechanisms to fight against crime. As an independent and impartial oversight body, IPID conducts its investigations without external influence, and its decisions regarding cases under its jurisdiction are made independently.
The Auditor General has cast doubts on Joburg City Power's ability to stay afloat after its latest financial statement shows its liabilities now exceed its total assets. City Power has received a scathing report by the Auditor General highlighting financial mismanagement. City Power is an entity under the Johannesburg Metro which supplies power to a majority of households and businesses across the city. Tabiso Goba reports.
According to City Power's latest financial statement, its total assets come up to about 25 billion rand, while its liabilities are at around 26 billion rand. This means the power utility's liabilities exceed its assets by just over R1 billion. In contrast, during the previous year, City Power's assets were 1.6 billion rand higher than its liabilities. The Auditor General's report into City Power's finances says there is significant doubt whether the entity can continue operating as a going concern. A going concern refers to a business that can meet its financial obligations for the foreseeable future without the threat of bankruptcy. Tabiso Goba, Eyewitness News.
SASSA says many grant beneficiaries have not switched to the new Postbank cards as the deadline looms. This has prompted the CEOs of both entities to hold a briefing this morning for a progress report on the transition. Wendy Kaiser-Philander from Parliament's Standing Committee on Social Development says they hope that the briefing will address the availability of stations, especially in rural areas.
Particularly in rural areas, we have seen where promises was made of more switch sites opening. I had an oversight visit to the West Coast last week. Those sites were not operational yet, so hoping by this briefing there would be a commitment and a definite date as to when these expanded sites will be opened.
She says another extension is unlikely.
We were informed that a further extension is not possible due to Postbank regulatory requirements, but we certainly hope that the option does exist and that it is a possibility.
And US President Donald Trump says he plans to speak to his Russian counterpart, Vladimir Putin, tomorrow about ending the war in Ukraine. He also says discussions are already ongoing about dividing up certain assets between the warring parties. US officials are hopeful that a Ukraine-Russia ceasefire deal could be reached in weeks after Washington proposed a halt in fighting in the 3-year war after talks in Saudi Arabia, which Kyiv accepted. Washington and Kyiv's European allies are pressing Moscow to accept a halt in the fighting, but Putin has given no clear answer, instead listing a string of conditions and raising serious questions over the proposal. Gold is trading at $2,988.39 an ounce. The rand is at 18.19 to the dollar, 23.54 to the pound, 19.80 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $71.12 a barrel.
Sharon Lee expects some delays on Malibongwe Drive. This is between Witkoppen and Balez. Also in four ways, traffic sluggish on Winnie Mandela Drive between Witkoppen and the N1. Look out for those faulty traffic lights in Midrand at Old Pretoria Road and Ellendale.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers and thunder showers. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 22 degrees. The top story in EWN this hour, Police Minister Senzo Mchunu has welcomed IPID's probe into KwaZulu-Natal's top cop Nhlanhla Mkhwanazi for allegedly interfering in the arrest of a correctional services senior official.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app. 702.
We're listening to you. You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Seven minutes after 10 o'clock, Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702. Thank you for your contribution as well on the 702 open line. Here's an interesting idea from someone on Twitter who says, Clement, how about we get one of the AfriForum guys to be considered as ambassador to the US? They will be welcomed by Trump and that whole administration with open arms. No doubt about that, but really? No ways. I would expel myself from this country if that would be the case. 7 now, after 10.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
All right, so we're picking up from this conversation we started on the 702 open line in the previous hour, speaking to the Department of International Relations now about this expulsion of the U.S. ambassador, Ibrahim Rasool. That's our ambassador to the U.S. I do think that this really takes our relations with the U.S. to a new low. But how does our government respond going forward? Crispin Piri is the spokesperson for the minister in the Department of Relations, joins us now in studio. Crispin, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Thank you for having me, Clement, and good morning to our Radio 702 listeners.
Was the correct process followed here on the expulsion of our ambassador?
Article 9 of the Vienna Convention does enable a host country to then label or declare a ambassador of another country as a persona non grata. And that is the article that the US government has invoked in this instance. Look, some governments would have gone with the option of a démarche, which is to call in the ambassador and ask the ambassador to explain their position, and then from there take a decision whether they would then either ask the South African Republic in this instance to recall the ambassador, or they would do it themselves. So that is the option. Those are the options that are available. But in this instance, Article 9 has been invoked, and we respect the sovereign right of that country of the US to invoke Article 9 of the convention. And we don't quibble with that sovereign right.
Yeah, I wish they offered you the same courtesy. By the way, when you look at sovereignty, when the ambassador of the US ambassador to South Africa, Ambassador Brigitte, lied about us or the government having somehow supplied arms to Russia to fight in Ukraine, You took a different approach. I remember the minister Pando called him to come explain himself, and I think there was a reprimand, but not this extreme option of expulsion. So are you saying in other instances, and normally other governments would go with what you went with the last time you had to deal with something almost similar?
Yes, I think that's normally the approach. Also, you're right, to afford us the courtesies to say that, look, we have engaged your ambassador, we are not happy with 1, 2, 3, 4, and that message would then be transmitted through the diplomatic channels back to South Africa, and South Africa would then duly respond. But it doesn't negate the fact that they could also go for the option of directly declaring an individual.
They have a right to
persona
do
non
that.
grata. They have that right, and they've invoked it.
Yeah. What are the normal formal processes to communicate that decision? Because there's so many decisions that have been communicated on Twitter, where sometimes I find our government finds out for the first time on Twitter. It's happened even with when aid was cut permanently. I had the Minister of Home Affairs who said, well, we found out there. So there are many instances where things are announced there on social media, and then I wonder if the official processes are followed. Did you guys receive a formal letter? I know the ambassador must have received one. I saw one circulating. Was there supposed to be a communication to you as government, as Pretoria?
Yes. So what would happen is that the State Department in this instance would communicate this through the ambassador in Washington, who would then transmit the message back to us.
Mm-hmm.
That this is the message that I've received. That's the diplomatic channel.
Yeah.
It's speaking through the host or the ambassador in that particular country. So what we saw in this instance was first the social media announcement, then followed by the diplomatic channel process.
Yeah.
So it seems that is the preferred method of the United States to announce it first on a social media platform and then send you the official communication through the diplomatic channels.
I wonder if you guys are brushing up your skills on social media, because that looks like that's where things are playing out when it comes to the US.
Yeah, well, public diplomacy has taken a completely different shape now, and
It is.
Twitter diplomacy does seem to be a new platform.
That's it.
Yeah.
So how do you then respond as government? I know the position now seems like it's not to retaliate. What do you do though?
So what we do is we call back our ambassador, which we have done. Our ambassador will be coming back home, and he must then debrief the president and the minister. And that would entail giving his assessment of exactly what had transpired, what is the perspective of the Americans, and then what then becomes, in his own recommendation, the way forward. So that needs to happen first.
Yeah.
But we do feel that we need the highest level of representation in the United States. So we will be sending in a representative as well.
Okay.
So we will be filling that post. We will ensure that there is an ambassador to represent South Africa.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a moment. I think you have had the opportunity now as DERCO to reflect on what Ambassador Rasool said about that sitting president in his host country. That statement he's made was undiplomatic, especially for someone in his position.
Look, you can have that analysis to say that may not have been the place to make that statement, and that may not have been the appropriate things to say. But the fact of the matter is that we are here now. He's been declared a persona non grata, and that's what we have to confront. I think applying a retrospective lens of should have, could have, doesn't assist us in this moment. What we maintain is that our relations with the United States are very important. We see them as mutually beneficial. And we want to continue that relationship. So we will then act in a manner that pursues that relationship so that both of our economies and both nations can continue to have the bilateral relations that we enjoyed. Yes, we definitely are seeing that we're in a rocky space now in terms of our bilateral relations. They are not the way they should be. And this is not to say that bilateral relations are always smooth, but we believe that where there are areas of disagreement, that should be handled differently. And that's what we want to get to, where we see that there may be possible areas of disagreement between us, but we handle these in a very mature way and in a manner that is not antagonistic as we are seeing it now.
Don't you think that also reflecting on what he has said actually gives you an opportunity, in fact, gives you an opportunity to communicate to other ambassadors about the importance of being cautious when you are speaking at forums, or you may be speaking in your quote-unquote personal capacity, even though you're invited as an ambassador? Because I do think that, I agree with you, could have or should have But it's important for us to reflect on what the ambassador has said so that the same mistake doesn't happen again. Because I would have thought this is part of their training, right? In diplomatic training, you are trained on what to say, what language to use. You know how to dodge questions if they're about the internal affairs of other countries. And I was looking at the Vienna Convention where it emphasizes that stay away from opining on, it doesn't forbid it, but it emphasizes that you have to be cautious of that. Isn't that an opportunity to learn here?
This is well known, Clement, and our ambassadors are well trained. Ambassador Rasool is an experienced diplomat as well. And so that's why it's important for us to debrief him, to understand how he saw this and what could have transpired from his perspective before we also venture a definitive view around these things. It's very important that we engage him directly to understand how he sees this development and what had transpired from his perspective. But absolutely, you are right. And our ambassadors are well trained. And that's why this is quite unprecedented, might I add. And it has never happened before in any country where we have an ambassador being declared a PNG. So this is something.
Or you have an ambassador who attacks a sitting president in his host country. You've never had that before.
You see, so why I don't want to go into that particular framing of this being an attack is because if you look at the entire audio that was, or the entire speech and presentation that Ambassador Rasool did make, there are many other things that he did say that did show that there's a lot of deference to the American administration. So if we want to pull this specific comment out, we then narrow in on something that really could have been a small comment in a very larger context.
But it was a very important comment because I looked at what he said throughout as well.
That may be so.
He actually, when you look at it in context, it makes sense. But that comment he says about supremacy, that's him opining on the internal politics and policies or whatever the agenda that the sitting president where he's being hosted is doing. That is never advisable, especially because you're dealing with a Trump administration that really thrives on backlash. Of course they're going to respond.
Yeah, then that's why we say that it's critical that, and you'd have seen the president's statement that the appropriate people carry themselves with appropriate decorum across the board. And it applies to even our counterparts on the other side.
So what happens with, because I've got some people on the WhatsApp line saying, Clement, I hope there are going to be people at OR Tambo International Airport to welcome the ambassador. There are people who feel like you can't just leave him hung out to dry. And the position you've taken as government seems to be, we're not going to defend him. We want to hear from what he says, but it is what it is. We'll appoint somebody else. And some people feel like that's you just leaving him hung out and dry. How do you respond to that? Do you think you've got a responsibility to defend him?
We have a responsibility to ensure that he gets back now that he's been declared persona non grata. The implication of that is that his immunities will expire within a short space of time. So to protect him, first and foremost, physically and beyond, is to ensure that he comes back. Then we have an opportunity to then really get to understand from him how these things played out. So it's not a question of us leaving him out to dry, but it's focusing on what the most immediate tasks are in this instance. And indeed, look, the South African government communicates its positions to that host country through the ambassador. So we would want to get a sense from him as to how, moving forward, we can continue to communicate our positions. But, of course, the South African government really, really has to look at this very critically. And it's not to say that, we are leaving him out to dry. I hear people may want to say they want to welcome him at the airport. It's all well and good. Everyone is entitled in this country. It's a free country. Gather wherever you want to gather, how you want to gather. But I don't think at this stage we would encourage that. We would roll out a public engagement after we have engaged the ambassador as we see fit, because he has a contract with the department. He's still an ambassador contracted to the department. So,
all right, we're going to talk about what this means for our relations with the U.S. in a moment, but I want to quickly take the listeners to President Cyril Ramaphosa, who has just addressed this Trump matter now, speaking in Johannesburg.
Made by our ambassador in straightening out the path to ensure that there is meaningful engagement at the diplomatic level. So this is a hiccup that we are working on straightening out. So we are not being blue-ticked. We cannot be blue-ticked because we are such an important player to the United States of America, as they are an important player to South Africa from a political point of view, from a trade point of view, and from a whole number of other important points of view. So we are not blue tickable, if I can use that term. We cannot be ignored. And so we will, and they have sent a message. They sent a note verbal to inform us about the action that they took. So that shows that they have formalized the communication. So we are not being blue-ticked. We are being recognized, much as it first came out in a tweet, but it did finally come out in a formal communication. And we will engage with the United States of America in a formal way. We will do so with deep respect for them and for President Trump as well. We will deal with the U.S. as an important global player, as we are also an important player. So our relations to the United States are going to be put on even keel. So I would like the people of South Africa not to have sleepless nights, have peaceful nights, knowing that we are working on ensuring that this relationship is put on a good footing going forward, because we trade together, we play together in various sports, and we are political interactors in a number of forums, and so we have to deal with each other without any doubt.
Samgelo, last question.
All right, so that is President Cyril Ramaphosa there addressing what happened to the ambassador, South African ambassador to the U.S. He says, don't have sleepless nights. They're going to continue engaging with the U.S. In a way that shows deep respect. And that's where I want to pick up Crispin when he says we are not being blue-ticked. I think it's become clearer and clearer that even Ambassador Rasool was struggling to gain access to some State Department officials or senior Republican officials. It doesn't look like the administration wants to meet with South African officials. I know, they're quick to meet with Afiforum or the DA. They haven't given us the names of who they've met with. But why is it that we still haven't been able to confirm a meeting?
That is actually a good question. And it's just what makes this development quite, as the president says, a hiccup, is that he was on the verge of securing that engagement. In fact, on the 20th of March, he was going to the White House to get an official date as to when he would be meeting senior White House officials. So he had made significant progress, despite what faceless people are saying in various publications. I've read reports of that kind. On the contrary, Ambassador Rasool had really made significant developments.
It took him a while, though. It took him a while.
40 days. This administration has only been in place for 40 days.
And yes, AfriForum was able to get in there, and the DA were able to get in there and meet with people.
Not in the White House, my friend. They claim that, but we don't have official pictures of doing so, and we don't have evidence that they did.
They said they're protecting the people that they spoke to.
If you are engaging an administration in a capacity that warrants anyone's attention, that does not require any protection.
Yeah, I wonder. I don't think they lied, I think a lot of things about the DA and AfriForum, but I don't think they're lying about meeting with people in the White House.
Well,
someone close to them has the audience of the president, and there's no other way to explain the decisions that the Trump administration has taken against this country, except, of course, the ambassador speaks at a webinar. It gets cut, that clip gets sent to the Secretary of State of the U.S., who then makes a decision quickly on Twitter before sending official communication. There are people here that have easy access to some people who are close to Trump.
Yes, well, that may be so, but it's not to say that our ambassador in Washington at the moment was not able to exert South Africa's impact. And what people would say is that, we met these senior officials. Well, who are those senior officials if you don't have an Africa desk in place in the U.S., if you don't have a trade office? The trade office that got only nominated
could be advisors
a couple of weeks ago. So what we believe is really engaging those particular individuals, because not only are they the experts on this region, but they actually have to implement the decisions of that.
But Trump doesn't care about
so
experts.
they're not in
Isn't
place.
he firing them?
They're not in place, and well, he may be firing some, but in this instance, he's not nominated those individuals. So it means that even from a policy point of view, the Americans are not yet in a position to make very determined decisions around trade. And around how you even approach Africa as a continent.
Which is why the advisors are the most important people to talk to right now.
Which I say,
which is
Ambassador Rasool was really on the verge of
Helen Ziller told
meeting.
me already late last year, just after the win or whatever, he was able to meet with Trump's advisors.
Look, and let me also say that the president, it's not like the president has not spoken to President Trump. If they've had that conversation. So it's a question of how we ensure that whatever we discuss has the potential to be implemented administratively. That's also our role as DIRCO. It's not the sake of having conversations for the sake of having them, but the ability to follow up on where these conversations end up in the administration is critical.
Yeah.
And that's where diplomacy, the difference between diplomacy and ultimately our policy and interests end up finding expression, is our ability as the department to ensure that the relevant counterparts in the State Department are seized with the matters of the Republic as we see them.
Yeah, but I wonder, do you have a new approach, Crispin? Because if you want to relate with the US the way you would ordinarily relate with any other country, that's never going to work. You are not dealing with any other country. You're not dealing with any other president. You're dealing with a very unique president who has completely taken a 360 degree on what diplomacy is, on how he looks at protectionism. So you need to change your approach at some point. So are you going to be just someone who always takes okay, sure, we're still going to be diplomatic and do this? And I'm not suggesting you must do outrageous things like the things that are done to us, but I'm just saying that if you think you're going to sit back and be the bigger person in the room consistently to the same people who are showing you that they don't care about that, that's never going to give us results.
Clement, what you must understand is that our relations with the United States are also with the people of the United States. How we interact with that country is a reflection of what we believe those people are. So yes, the administration may take a particular posture at some particular point, but we need to be able to think about the long term of our relationship with the people of the United States. Secondly, of course, we need to be agile to the new policies that we are seeing in this administration and respond in accordance with those policies. So, for example, some people would say this president prefers bilateral relations over multilateral relations, or he prefers having a bilateral trade relationship over one that is a free trade area. Those are things that, of course, we have to look at and adjust to that current phenomenon. And that's definitely what we're doing. But those messages and that type of approach is not done on Twitter. It's not done here now in interviews. That is the type of engagement that you have directly with the individuals who are implementing these policies. And that's what we want to do. So that is the approach, and it's tried and tested, Clement. You're not going to win this by or you're not going to be successful by out tweeting President Trump.
Well, the reality is we've never been here before. So
but
we really don't know.
Which country is doing it? Also ask yourself that. If a country like, for example, Canada, who are their neighbors currently, and you can see that the relations are a bit strained.
But they've also taken a firm stance. They've drawn the line.
They are able to respond with a trade retaliation. A trade retaliation. So we can't be retaliating exactly. There's a template on how you retaliate, or retaliation is the best approach. We have to assess it based on what is the issue before us.
Okay.
Right now, the issues that the ambassador has been deemed a PNG, we must respond by sending a new ambassador.
When are you expected to do that?
We are in the process of doing so. But what's important first is for the ambassador to come back.
Yeah.
Once he's back, then those processes would be full steam ahead. But the preliminary processes have begun.
You still need to you still need to present the person's credentials to the US, right?
The president would have to take a decision.
Yeah.
And then they would present the credentials of this individual.
Can they say no, not this one?
they would have to give very substantive reasons. But it has.
The US must give substantive reasons.
A reason is a reason.
Okay.
But it's not impossible for them to do so, but it wouldn't be advisable.
Okay. And then just lastly, have they sent any credentials for who they want to appoint here as ambassador?
In fact, as we speak today, we are expecting the Charge d'Affaires, who was originally in Ethiopia, to be coming here after Ms. Dana Brown had resigned. So we'll see Mr. Green. So they still have not nominated an ambassador to South Africa, despite this noise around a particular individual who's, it appears, declared themselves to be a nominee. But officially, as we understand it, there is no official nominee from the United States to South Africa.
Crispin Piri, thank you so much for making time. All the best.
We shall not be blue-ticked. Thank you very much.
You have a tough 4 years, you and your ministry and your department coming up. So all the best. Thank you for making time for us. It's 10:30. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Fiso, hi.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's expecting a full report from Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool following his expulsion from the US. America's Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced Rasool's expulsion on Twitter last week Friday, accusing him of being a race-baiting politician who hates America. Ramaphosa, just a short while ago, told the reporters that the White House has committed to sending South Africa formal communication about its decision. Another drug mule has been arrested in the country, this time at Cape Town International Airport. Authorities say they received formal or information about a suspect who boarded a flight from Brazil to Cape Town yesterday. The woman was identified and searched, and cocaine was found hidden inside a sports bag. And Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee says a probe into KwaZulu-Natal's top boss for police, Clement Manyathela, for allegedly interfering with an arrest increases mistrust among SAP's top brass. Police watchdog IPID has confirmed that it's investigating Manyathela for allegedly stopping the arrest of a top correctional services official, Nelly Ndlovu, in 2023. Ndlovu was accused of running a drug cartel at the time at the Westville prison. And those are the headlines. This EWN and more at 11, or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, things have settled down pretty nicely at this hour. That accident scene in the Hurlingham Bryanston area heading towards Sandton has been cleared and traffic is now free-flowing. There's also free-flowing traffic on our highways. No other accidents have been reported. Just look out for those faulty traffic lights, though. That's in the Sharon Lee area at Malibongo Drive and Belez. In Midrand, traffic lights still not working at Allendale Road and Old Pretoria Road. There's also traffic lights out of order in North Riding at Malibongo Drive and the N1. If you come across any other traffic issues, please SMS us on 31702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
You could be famous for DIY like that time you turned a barrel into a braai. Or you could be really famous for DIY with a little help from Chamberlain. Join us from 20 March to 6 April for our Really Famous for Hardware promotion and tap into 120 years of DIY know-how. Get 10% off Dulux paint mixing, explore the widest range of tools, building supplies and even siteware. And visit our newly renovated Waterkloof Glen branch. It's your one-stop DIY shop, and with Click and Collect, we mean that literally. Chamberlain, really famous for hardware since 1903.
They say, on the day of his birth, he drove his mother home, and he once escaped a female shark attack using nothing but his charm. And he drives a tank. Discover the GWM Tank 300, now with a 2.4-liter turbo diesel from 8099 per month. Visit gwm.coza for T's and C's and to book a test drive. The new Tank 300 diesel. Go with more. Go with GWM.
How would you like to lighten the load when it comes to getting your freight there conveniently and on time? You can with a tag. No scrambling around for cash or a card. Less time wasted. Choose the convenient way. To drive smart, download the Sanral app to link your cards and manage top-up payments for your convenience. For more info, visit sunral.co.za. Tags are the way to go. Sunral, an agency of the Department of Transport.
Just handle exit. Ah.
When I need on-the-go relief from a painful sore throat, I use Andalex C lozenges. It kills viruses and bacteria, reduces inflammation, and gives my mouth a burst of fresh flavor. Andalex, SA's #1 choice for a sore mouth and throat. Andalex C lozenges are available at all leading pharmacies and supermarkets.
Just Andalex it.
The Money Show.
Weekday evenings at 6.
The big question, just exactly what's driven gold up so strongly in the short term, and presumably the answer is about Trump.
Yeah, absolutely, Stephen. It's all about fear. Lots of indexes and assets around the world have changed price this year because of changing expectations. People just don't know what to expect. So across their portfolio, they want to diversify, and gold is obviously seen as a very safe asset.
Peter Armitage, CEO of Anchor Capital.
The Money Show
on 702. Let's walk the talk.
The Money Show with Stephen Grootes is brought to you by ABSA CIB. That's how we're invested in your story. Your story matters. ABSA is a registered FSP.
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
25 minutes before 11 o'clock. And shall I start with the voice notes? From the conversation in the previous chat, I saw there were 2 voice notes that came through. I wanted to just start off with that. Before we get into our next conversation about companies that have gone through the most reputationally, and they've really been trying to work that out. And I want us to find out how far they are with that process. But let me just quickly play this reaction from our last conversation.
Good morning, Clement. My view on the Ibrahim Rasool issue is that I think he did the right thing. What we are facing in America is not just authoritarianism, it's fascism. You have to fight it from the outset. It's going to be too late when people start dying, and then only then do we want to speak up. We can't be all diplomatic when we are seeing something evil take root, and it's going to it's going to impact the entire world. What's going to happen under Trump is going to be so bad, so ugly. We need to be fighting it now. We can't be waiting and playing nice diplomacy. Thank you, Tsepo Soweto.
Exactly. I guess, yes, then the fault is on the South African administration. That why are they not responding? Why are they not responding like their counterparts against what Donald Trump is doing? I mean, really, what is the president still doing, still considering, still researching? I mean, really, there's nothing here to research or to find out. Trump is looking for war, and let's give him that. I mean, really, you know?
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
23 minutes now before 11 o'clock. We started a series a couple of weeks ago where we look at companies that have survived scandals and controversies, and we look at where they are now and how they are recovering. We started with KPMG. We spoke to the CEO of KPMG. Last week we had Eskom and spoke to the Eskom board chairperson. Today we're talking to the chief executive officer at Siemens Sub-Saharan Africa, Sabine Dalomo. You'll remember that Siemens was involved in what really was one of the biggest corporate corruption scandals in history. This German company, which is, by the way, one of the world's largest engineering and electronics firms, was exposed for engaging in widespread bribery. It was accused of paying an estimated $1.4 billion in illicit funds to secure contracts in multiple countries, including South Africa. And that scandal revealed a massive system of corruption within Siemens, where bribes were disguised as consulting fees to win government contracts. And over the years, the company has really worked hard to rebrand itself, and Siemens' case became a landmark moment in global anti-corruption efforts. And that's prompted stricter regulations and corporate accountability measures worldwide. Do you remember this scandal? Do you remember how it played out? You can join this conversation if you've got some inputs or you've got a question for my guest on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Sabine Dalomo joins us now via Zoom. Thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, Clement.
Hi. So let's maybe go a few steps back to sort of refresh our listeners' memories here. I mean, this scandal was on a global scale. How did it actually unfold, and how did it impact Siemens at a global level?
Yeah, well, look, first I have to make a little correction. We didn't have a matter in South Africa, but we had a Nigerian case impacting the African organization. But just to put a little bit a setting around it, one of the major aspects are that in the end of the 90s, or basically until the end of the 90s, these kinds of transactions, which were exposed within our organizations, were actually legally permitted. And so in Europe, in Germany, but also in the US at the end of the 90s, legislation was enforced to ensure that these kind of dealings are not going to happen. And so subsequent, a lot of companies, including ours, in the early 2000s, introduced, compliance programs and compliance officers and the likes, which should, oversee the correctness of the organization. But somehow, these kind of things are pretty hard to root out. And specifically, when you work in countries, or at that time, when you worked in certain countries, it was the way on how business would have been conducted. We as an organization were generally thought, we will be all safe because we had this compliance framework and we had a compliance officer in each of the countries and in headquarters. So we felt relatively comfortable. And in 2006, through a whistleblower, we had a dawn raid at our offices in Munich at the time, investigating some of the transactions which had been made visible. And as you already mentioned, it was to a tune of about 1.4 billion US dollar of bribes or payments which have been made in various mechanisms. One you mentioned already, through partners, and largely in countries where we were going for government contracts, and these monies were then made available to some of the government officials which were in charge of awarding these contracts.
Yeah, we'll look at the impact on the continent. For some reason, I was under the impression that South Africa as well somehow was involved. Thank you for that correction and pointing out it's Nigeria. We'll look at the impact on the continent in a moment, but for a company to go through something like that, Sabina, how do you even recover? I mean, it's been many years now. I know you've implemented extensive reforms as Siemens. What were some of the changes that you made, and can you confidently say today that as a company you've managed to restore trust and gain that credibility back?
Yeah, so I do believe that we gained the credibility back as a company, and I will also give you some aspects of which we have done to support it. Because when you look at compliance and when you look at corruption, it's not a one-way stream. And I mean, obviously in South Africa we have seen that as well. There are multiple parties involved. It's a network of people which are making it possible that it's happening. And so in large, obviously within the organization, we had quite a significant change. You will also see, when you follow the media of that time, our top management was changed, or so they were not directly involved, but they failed to safeguard the company. And so CEO, CFO had been exchanged, a compliance officer was exchanged. We had past 2006 until we pleaded guilty in 2008 at the Department of Justice in the US. We had a number of investigations through external law firms, really looking at every single company globally and set up we have, if there would be anything else which potentially was not yet part of the total revelation which came out. And so one thing what that gave us is, as everybody in the organization was, basically involved in questioning and in providing documents and contract reviews. It has given a much higher awareness within every single employee how important it is to stay compliant. So that's the one part. The second part is we really sharpened some of our topics, like, for instance, the way and how people can report our activities through our whistleblower hotline, which is anonymous. And every single case is investigated internally. And if it's obviously not anonymous, there would be also feedback given. With anonymous, sometimes that is a bit more difficult. But every single case, in every way which is against legislative procedures in any way or form, it will be reviewed and investigated by our compliance team, not necessarily in the country where it's happening, but we also give it a neutrality. The other part which we did is we have an extensive document, and you will also find that on our intranet and internet. It's our business conduct guidelines, and they really lay out the fundamentals on how we are working as Siemens. And it starts with, the ethical values which we basically take towards our business activities and how we want to be seen in the world. But it also goes along with what we expect from our employees, specifically when it comes to conflict of interest, how we want them to behave with third parties. It goes in how we engage with partners, how we value legislation, and how we are going to deal. And the fundamental is that we want to be honest and trustworthy in all our dealings, and respect the dignity of others and societies we are operating in. And I think that makes a fundamental difference. And what is important around it is because obviously, since 2008, since we pleaded guilty, and by the way, we paid about $1.6 billion US dollar in fines. Yeah. So even if you look at what the original bribe would have been, or the mechanism on how we made these payments, the costs we had afterwards were significantly higher than whatever came out of it when you look at profit line for the shareholder. But what we do is, we have an annual review specifically with all employees, with in-person trainings, but also digital trainings, online trainings. Every single employee has to do, even when they get onboarded as new employees joining our company, to ensure that this memory stays fresh all the time in the organization.
Yeah. Have you guys been able to quantify that cost that you speak of?
Yeah, so look, we had about the total amount in fines was about 800 to 900 million euro, US dollar, depending on how you look. And we had about 1.2 billion, which we just paid euro in legal fees. So it's really, really expensive to be non-compliant and obviously being then caught out in it. But it's really, from a shareholder's point of view, an incredible expense, and hence it is important to stay above board, because it is much cheaper for the company to do the right thing and do ethical business. And that we definitely have learned around that impact of 2006.
Yeah, and do you think the company, financially speaking, in terms of your profit margins now, have you managed to bounce back, or are you still on that road to recovery?
No, absolutely. We bounced back relatively fast. So what basically happened is, post when we pleaded guilty in 2008 at the Department of Justice in the US, we had a monitor. So one of the remedies we got prescribed was to have somebody overseeing our progress, and that was a program which was running for about 4 years. That time until 2012, we had the former German finance minister, Theo Weigel, who was, in regular intervals, looking together with some of the law firms if, measurements are properly taken to get our business in such way that it's run compliance. And it really goes on to the level having control over funds. having a proper chain of command. These are all topics which you need to have and implement to ensure that, wherever you have on one part, you have reporting, but, you don't want to get to the point actually that whistleblowers have to report something is wrong. You want to identify that out of your conduct and out of your audit procedures you have on a regular basis in a company. And that is the change and the more tightening on controls. Like, for instance, in our company, we don't have cash. Yeah. So there is no cash. And so therefore, we have also very strict regulations around it. And when you think about, African business, a lot of people will tell you in Africa, you have to only do business with cash. That's not true. We found a way around also doing business on the African continent in many countries, including Nigeria, where we still do business. To do that without having a cash box or anything they like. We have clear procedures around, how do we refund customers? How do we basically sign on partners? What kind of, annual checks we do with our partners to make sure that there is an extension of our brand are living to the same values than we have, because that's one of the major lessons we have learned, because they are not necessarily company which are incorporated in your standards, but you need to make sure when they represent you at, the government or at contracts or in other projects, that they are working according to the same principles and when Siemens would engage with them. And these are fundamental changes which we have done and which we are continuously validating and checking, and there is no way around.
Yeah. And what about your relationship with government entities? Because that's also something you needed to work on and to rebuild those relationships. And I'll talk in the context of the continent. We spoke about the public trust from just whether it's South Africans or Nigerians or people on the continent when they look at Siemens or even around the world. How have you worked on that process of rebuilding relationships with government entities?
Yeah, for one, as mentioned before, we were open and honest about what happened. We had with our major customers also sessions where we explained on what happened and what the way forward is going to be, what kind of controls and processes we have put forward. And depending in some of the countries, we also needed to settle separately from the US. But I think what is more important is we embarked as one part of our fine we had to pay. We could ring fence about $450 million for a program which called collective action, and we call it now as in our integrity initiatives. And I mentioned that earlier because corruption is not two people making a deal, but it's rather an entrenched type of behavior which you see at maybe the companies, the state-owned entities, the parties which are dealing with them. And so we are supporting compliance programs, like, for instance, through the Ethics Institute, through the GIPS Institute, where we sponsor some of the compliance and business conduct initiatives they put forward. And like, for instance, with the Ethics Institute, we did programs in South Africa, like for the city of Johannesburg, in the procurement program, explaining what is a conflict of interest, because often people do not know that, because also these kind of organizations don't have the funding to do that, and we don't expect anything in return. It is a kind of a corporate social responsibility which we roll out across the globe, and we did initiatives in Nigeria, in Angola, in Mozambique, with the universities, really trying to say, why is it not right to do that? Because obviously corrupt activities take business away and money away from the poorest people, because they obviously get less service delivery because the money goes into other pockets. And I think having that awareness why everyone needs to find every day for compliant business and ethics, I think that is mandatory in a society where we are living in.
Okay, I want to give an opportunity for our listeners to send out a few questions if they've got any. I've got some that have come through here on 011-883-0702. That's the number you can dial if you've got inputs or you've got a question for our guest. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. I'll go straight to your questions after this.
We want to hear what you have to say.
Email contact@702.co.za and share your ideas and comments.
So we can deliver more of what matters to you.
702 listens.
Let's walk the talk.
J.M. Coetzee's novel Life and Times of Michael K. arrives on stage at the Market Theatre. You can experience this breathtaking production with a cast that includes Sandra Prinsloo, Andrew Buckland, and Fanny Swayisa, alongside the Tony Award-winning Handspring Puppet Company. This riveting adaptation by Lara Foote follows the haunting story of a simple man who journeys through a war-torn time to find closure. This is an unmissable theatre event. Tickets are available on web tickets or visit markettheatre.co.za for more information.
Think bigger than just a banking partner. Think a team of specialized experts supporting you to make better financial decisions to enable your growth aspirations. Think a strategic partnership providing indispensable advice to help you make the right moves. Think bigger. Think Nedbank Commercial Banking. For more information, visit nedbank.co.za. See money differently. Nedbank. We're a licensed FSP and registered credit provider.
At Zero, we know there's nothing small about small business. It's starting from scratch. It's the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9. We don't think of you as small. We think of you as self-made. Search Zero with an X. Accounting software for self-made business.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702. Let's walk the talk.
It's 4 minutes now before 11 o'clock. We're wrapping up our conversation with the CEO at Siemens Sub-Saharan Africa, Sabine Dalomo. If you've got some questions, you can quickly call us on 011-883-0702. Kylo is calling us from Soshanguve. Kylo, do you have a quick question for us? Good morning.
Good morning. I would like to ask, it's very easy from that point of view to say that corruption is bad and it takes away from poor people, and it's a costly thing after the fact. But how would you encourage people to stay away from corruption before the fact? Because it's very tempting imagining that amount of money, going into your bank account, and you'll just easily change your values and your morals and switch and be like, okay, I'll do it, fine.
Okay, so how do they discourage people who try to commit, or how do they incentivize people as well to do good?
Yes.
From our point.
Yeah, go ahead, Sabina.
Yeah, look, from our point of view, I mean, it's obviously a little bit the stick and the carrot. Yeah, I mean, for once within our company, first of all, if somebody is found to be non-compliant and don't adhere to the rules, there will be disciplinary consequences. Yeah, so that's very clear, and we act swiftly on that. The other part is, at the end of the day, for us, we cannot have an unethical business conduct, because when you go back to the time when we did the business, it almost, cost us our business license to do business. And therefore, it's fundamental for Siemens' existence, for all the jobs which we are creating in South Africa and globally, that we remain compliant, because otherwise we risk everybody. And you can only appeal to the individual that, the ethical values are stronger than the greed to have money in the bank account for a reason where you didn't provide a service.
Okay, I've got two last questions. If you can respond to them, hopefully in 30 seconds. Sabina, one says, please can you ask the CEO if they pleaded guilty for the Nigeria case and how that matter was handled? And then the second question is, in a continent where there are some governments that always require bribes, especially for big businesses like Siemens, what advice do you have for companies that are doing business on the continent that may come across government officials who just want to get bribes for them in order for them to do business in those countries?
Yeah, so maybe I start with the last one first. So in that case, don't do the business. We did this in South Africa because obviously when these things that were unfolding, we were very aware of when South Africa went into state capture, and we just didn't bid for a certain contract because it was for us very obvious what was going on. And in the long run, now fast forward, you see it is better for our business because we made our business solid without these kind of activities. And that is the best thing you can have as an outcome. It's hard in the beginning, but you will weather through and you will come better out at the other end. And we are a proof point of that. And yes, Nigeria, we did settle with the Economic Finance and Corruption Commission in Nigeria. And yeah.
Okay,
we did.
Perfect. You did well by answering that in exactly 30 seconds, Sabine. Thank you so much for making time for us. I really appreciate it. Sabine Dalomo is the Chief Executive Officer at Siemens Sub-Saharan Africa. Remember, if there are companies that have gone through controversy, reputational damage, that you want to propose to us to focus on as well on top of our list, just send me an email on cm@702.co.za. It's 11 o'clock.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Sfiso Zulu. President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's expecting a full report from Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool following his expulsion from the US. America's Secretary of State Marco Rubio announced Rasool's expulsion last Friday on Twitter, accusing him of being a race-baiting politician. Ramaphosa confirmed to reporters this morning that the Trump administration has formally and diplomatically communicated Rasool's expulsion. Alfara Mushwana reports.
The expulsion of South Africa's ambassador to the US, Ibrahim Rasool, has further highlighted the turbulent diplomatic relationship between the two countries. However, President Cyril Ramaphosa insists that Rasool's expulsion does not mean the union buildings and the White House are now adversaries.
Improving our relationship with the United States of America is a priority for us. They are our trading partner, second largest trading partner after China.
Ramaphosa says Rasool will share his side of the story when he returns to South Africa.
And he's going to come back and give me a full report. So I will wait for a full report from him.
Meanwhile, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio claims that Rasool harbored animosity towards President Donald Trump and says he's not welcome in the country. Alfa Ramushwana, Eyewitness News, Johannesburg.
Another drug mule has been arrested in the country, this time at Cape Town International Airport. Authorities say they received information about a suspect who boarded a flight from Brazil to Cape Town yesterday. The woman was identified and searched, and cocaine was found hidden inside a sports bag. Hawk spokesperson Siabulela Vugubi says she swallowed an unknown quantity of drug pellets.
She is currently in hospital in an attempt to remove the swallowed drugs. Once charged, the suspect will make her first appearance in the Bellville Magistrates Court on the 18th of March 2025.
Since last year, police have caught several drug mules in the country, most of them at OR Tambo International Airport. Parliament's Police Portfolio Committee says a probe into KwaZulu-Natal top cop for allegedly interfering with an arrest increases mistrust among SAPS top brass. Police watchdog IPID has confirmed that it is investigating Clement Manyathela for allegedly stopping the arrest of a top correctional services official, Nelly Ndlovu, in 2023. Ndlovu was accused of running a drug cartel at the time at the Westville prison. Committee chairperson Ian Cameron says IPID's communication on the investigation might have been addressed prematurely as it is still at an early stage.
It is interesting that they would openly admit that it's in infancy stages. It's like me deciding that you have done something criminal. I've got nothing to prove it, but then I don't have anything solid to convict yet, but then I tell the world that I am investigating. It creates a bit of a sour taste.
A former accused who turned state witness has continued with her testimony in the Jocelyn Smith trial today after dropping several bombshells. Jocelyn's mother, Kelly Smith, Jacqueline Apollos, and Stefano van Rijn face charges of kidnapping and human trafficking for the little girl's disappearance. The accused are on trial in the Western Cape High Court, sitting in the Saldanha Bay Multi-Purpose Centre. Laurentia Lombard started her testimony last week. Carlo Peterson has more.
Former accused Laurentia Lombard told the court she overheard Kelly Smith's plan to sell Jocelyn before witnessing the alleged incident. Lombard said the day before Jocelyn went missing, she watched Smith take Jocelyn to a white car where they met an unknown woman who gave Smith a small package. Lombard told the court Smith later confessed to selling Jocelyn to a Sangoma for 20,000 rand. She says Smith offered her and Stefano van Rijn 1,000 rand to keep quiet, while the rest of the money would be split between herself and Jacqueline Apollos. Lombard says both her and van Rijn accepted the offer, but Smith never gave them any money. Lombard told the court on the day Jocelyn went missing, Smith took Jocelyn to meet the same woman and later returned to report her missing. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News.
And police say 10 more people have been detained in connection with a fire at a nightclub in northern Macedonia. It's understood sparks ignited from fireworks while a local band was performing on stage. 155 people have been injured and taken to hospital. Authorities believe the 20 suspects are responsible for the fire, including officials from departments which gave out what authorities say were illegal licenses. Gold is trading at $2,988.39 an ounce. The rand is at 18.19 to the dollar, 23.54 to the pound, 19.80 to the euro. Brent crude oil is at $71.12 a barrel.
In Eastland, Pretoria, there's bumper-to-bumper traffic. This is on Sturmville Road approaching the N1. Otherwise, the rest of Gauteng not looking too bad. Just look out for those faulty traffic lights in the Groenkloof area at Christina de Wit and Euphius.
A cloudy day in store for Gauteng with isolated showers and thunder showers. The temperatures will peak at highs between 20 and 22 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. President Cyril Ramaphosa says he's expecting a full report from Ambassador Ibrahim Rasool following his expulsion from the US.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
Your stories,
Your questions.
702 listens. You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Eight minutes after 11 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela show. Thank you for staying with us or joining us if you've just joined us here on 702. Time for our Family Matters feature.
702.
Family Matters.
So today we're discussing parenting a child with special needs. And if you have been raising one, I would like you to give us a call and share what your experience has been like as you've been managing that, because it can be a lot. There are children who require specific attention, whether it's because of learning difficulties or emotional and behavioral difficulties, mental or cognitive disorders, physical disabilities, you name it, or medical conditions like cerebral palsy or Down syndrome. And as parents, sometimes we're not prepared for the kind of care that we need to administer for a child with special needs. Right? A child like that requires specialized attention and support. So when you are parenting them, it's a unique journey. It can be challenging, but it also can be rewarding. And I know technology has made it possible for early detection, with some parents now being able to learn early enough in pregnancy about their child's possible challenges. And that then makes it easy for them to be able to plan for the future and seek the support that they need. But some parents may find themselves, even dealing with financial challenges because you're seeing now the child's constant need for medical attention. Some find it difficult when they're looking for a special needs school because currently South Africa does not have enough of those schools. So how have you been managing as a parent, and what advice do you need? What question do you have for my guest this morning? You can call us on 011-883-0702 or send us a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. Esther Chunga is a psychoanalyst and executive director at Ububele Educational and Psychotherapy, who's going to guide us through this conversation. Esther, thank you so much for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thank you for having me.
What are some of the most significant challenges that are just facing parents that are raising children with special needs?
First of all, I think this is a really important topic, and I'm so pleased to be included in it. You mentioned a little bit of something that's very important. Firstly, it may be a complete surprise to receive a diagnosis about your child's medical conditions, cognitive conditions, or difficulties that they face. Ordinarily, as a parent, you face so many anxieties about your child's capabilities, whether or not they will reach their developmental milestones. Being a parent comes with so much anxiety, and then to add that layer just makes it so much more frightening. But I think parents that are raising children with special needs face different challenges, including access to resources. I know you said some parents have the luxury of finding out before a child comes into the world that there may be difficulties. Others don't. If you're accessing public health services, you may not know, and you may kind of be met with the surprise when your child is born or conditions develop after the fact. So access to resources, access to accurate information. There's so much information online, but not all of it is accurate. And then access to support for yourself as the parent, and support for your child that you're supporting, and the family as a whole, because of course your child is part of a system. And these are some of the challenges that a lot of parents face with special needs children.
Yeah. And I'm glad you mentioned also the issue of support, because a lot of them just don't even know where to turn to, and of course they have to deal with these stigmas that actually come with their children facing the challenges that they're facing as children that have got special needs. The issue of schools, though, Esther, I mean, I know often there's a concern raised about how we don't have enough schools, and in cases where there are schools, some parents often complain about the cost and how they can't even afford to. It's not just the school, it's a constant medical attention, the needs of a child with special needs. How are we doing in terms of just making sure like the schools are there and there's actually support for those that may not be at a better financial footing?
Yeah. I think the hope is always to have inclusive education, which would cater for children across the board, those that need less special attention and those that do. But of course, the reality looks very different on the ground. And I'm just speaking from a context of Ububele, where we do our work in the Alexandra Township primarily. There is very very limited resources and access to schools that cater to children with a diverse range of needs. And I think there's a lot of work to be done there in terms of inclusive education and access to education for children across the spectrum, whatever their difficulties may be.
Yeah. Okay. I want us to look at something else now around maybe the coping strategies, some advice, maybe or tips you could give some parents out there who are raising children with special needs, because as a parent you need to be strong first for your child, because they are going to come back with so many things. Maybe at school they're being bullied, maybe they're being called names when they're playing across the road, maybe some other children don't understand the condition that they have. So there's a lot that goes on that requires you as a parent as well to just be firm and with the necessary support and be strong for your child. How do you advise parents who are going through this and they've just been struggling to find their zone? How can they, are there any strategies, coping strategies that you can advise?
I mean, firstly, I think we need to acknowledge the emotional impact that comes with raising a child with special needs. It comes with a lot of emotional stress, feelings of isolation. There's a lot of stigma, shame, and guilt, self-blame, and misdirected blame, even not just self, but from others. And so I think people manage a lot emotionally when they have a special needs child. And it's so important to acknowledge that, firstly, within yourself and to those around you, those in your village, those in your trusted circle, to let them know of the emotional difficulties that you're facing, to access support, to have a village. And, there's lots of important organizations doing really important work, including Ububele, where we stand in the gap for parents to support them emotionally, whether through therapeutic support, whether through parenting groups, but having people in your corner to hold you up and support you that you can communicate with very honestly about what is happening. And then also trying to gain as much information as you can about the condition that your child is being faced with, so that you are able to respond in a way that's helpful for them, which will also then ease your own emotional stresses.
Yeah. 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Maybe you want to share your experience with us, or maybe you want to ask for some advice. You've got a question, something you've picked up as you parent a child with special needs. How have you been managing? How are you also taking care of yourself as a parent? What are your coping strategies? How are you being there for your little ones? Give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note, or maybe you want to share with other parents how you've dealt with something similar before, maybe raising a child with special needs and they're now grown, they're independent, and you just want to give advice to others that may be raising children with such conditions. 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702.
Clement, good morning. Yeah, the access to schools and facilities is one key challenge, but also medical aid. My son is suffering from autism, and I remember at an early age when he was at primary school, he had to go through speech therapist and many other help. But unfortunately, come June, the medical aids have exhausted. Now you have to be stuck with having to pay cash. And it just becomes difficult. But the access to schools, because of in Pretoria, they are limited. You keep on, knocking. You get into the register. They put you on a waiting list. They don't come back to you. Now I'm sitting with a situation where I have to. He was writing matric last year because he was attending at the school where that was not actually saving him his interest. Now he failed the matric. Now I'm busy with DBE, Department of Basic Education, for him to do rewrite in June this year. It's just not so accommodative, our education system for special kids. Thanks, Joseph Rossi.
Yeah, there's a lot more work that needs to be done there. I know a lot of people are asking about the support and resources that are available to parents that are raising children with special needs. And Esther, someone is specifically asking about Ububele education and psychotherapy, about what kind of support you guys offer there.
All right. Thank you, Clement. So Ububele, we are 25 years old, and we are primarily focused on helping to bridge healthy attachment between children and their caregivers, from 0 to 12 primarily is our work. And through that, we offer different programs. We have home visiting programs where parents get home visits from an early childhood community practitioner in their home. And we have parents that have children of special needs, and they receive these visits that offer a lot of emotional support. Watch videos, watch information around care for children. We have parenting groups. We have an ECD center that is also inclusive to children with special needs education. We offer therapy. So we have a range of services to really meet the needs of our community. And you can look us up online, ububele.org, and get more information on that.
Okay, wonderful. Let's go back to some calls now. Raisa, you're calling from Johannesburg. Good morning. Hi, Raisa.
Hi. I'm sorry, I didn't know I was on.
Oh, no worries. Go ahead.
I am so glad you're having this conversation. I'm an occupational therapist, so I work with many kids with special needs. But I'm also a mum to a boy who has a very rare disease. He's one of very few in South Africa. And he is, because of his diagnosis, he uses a wheelchair. And one of our biggest challenges with him was schooling. He's an incredibly bright boy, and he didn't really fit into the boxes of what some of our special needs schools require. And we had to fight guns blazing in terms of mainstream education. And he's at a school, and I cannot tell you the value both ways, from him being in a mainstream school, as well as the children who are exposed to him. Because I think this idea or this concept of us having special needs schools may be catered to kids who need some special needs, but at the end of the day, or in the real world, as these kids get older and become adults, we are not segregated. We are not excluded. We're all part of the real world. So we need to be able to get everyone to interact with each other, learn from each other, and become more understanding, considerate. I really think we need to push the concept of inclusion.
Yeah, absolutely. And how has it been for you, Raisa, raising a kid with needs like that? How have you been coping? How have you made sure you are just strong yourself for your child?
This is his third year at school, and we have watched the change in terms of him, his emotional development, his social development, and then for us. And I must be honest, when we started, I had my heart in my mouth, thinking, what is it going to be like for my child? Because I think you build your child up to be strong emotionally, and then you're putting them out into the real world. And kids can be really nasty. They can say horrible things. You don't belong here. You can't play with me because you can't do this or whatever it is. So there was a learning curve for him in terms of how to be able to adapt to comments from other kids, from other parents, and then as well as for other children to be able to interact with him. And what was interesting is because he uses a wheelchair, people often go to a misconception of, he's got cerebral palsy. He doesn't have cerebral palsy. And people had to learn a little bit more, knowing that not everybody in a wheelchair is the same. And also not everybody in a wheelchair has cognitive challenges. So it came as a learning curve to both for us as parents. I still wear my hat on my sleeve when he goes to school. But it has been such a growth, and it was so interesting because his headmistress had actually told me recently, she said to me, the school doesn't see the wheelchair anymore. They see him as part of everyone else.
Yeah.
Which is incredible because
that's incredible, yeah.
We are hoping to break the misconceptions, break the stereotypes, because I think there are a lot of stereotypes around, number one, parenting kids with special needs, and number two, the actual child, the child with the difference.
Absolutely. Raisa, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us. Esther, I don't know if you've got anything you want to say after that, and then I can continue with other
Yes,
calls.
please.
Sure.
Clement. Thank you. That was such an important aspect that Raisa brought forward. And I just think that it's also the responsibility of parents with children who don't have special needs to educate them, to expose them to difference, to have these conversations, and to normalize the fact that actually every child is unique in their own different ways. And the more that we integrate and include, the better for children with special needs and for, bridging the gap in spaces where children often feel very excluded and isolated alongside their parents. So I think it's very important for us also who don't face those challenges to take it on and face some kind of ownership and responsibility to do that.
Yeah. Joseph, you are in Roslyn. Good morning.
Good morning, and your guest.
Sure.
Yeah, I just want to share the experience. In short, I have a son who's 20 now, whose condition is autism. At first, it was difficult for us as parents to understand his condition. The stigma of us thinking that the child is naughty. I remember, at some stage we felt, he doesn't listen. to us because he would go on top of the table. At one stage, I was driving, taking him to crèche. Back then, he was, I think, around 5. And then he changed the gears while the car was moving. Only later, when at school, they took him through the clinical psychology, we understood his condition. And then we had to do some research in terms of what autism is, what autism entails. Then we realized that, he actually, we advised that he cannot attend what we call a normal school. He had to attend a special school to attend to his needs. But I think key here, and what is worrying Clement, is the issue of the stigma. But secondly, the issue of access to school. I know that you earlier on touched on it. It remains a big challenge. I'm based in Pretoria. At some stage you have to wait 4 years. Sometimes you wait forever on the waiting list of the schools. But still, they are limited. We only have got two in Pretoria. I think one is Alma in Gezina, which serves the children with autism. But the stigma, I remember at one stage when I took him home, back in the village, they said he was mentally challenged. And now, if you don't understand this condition as a parent, it will be difficult for other people to also understand. So it's very key, and it's good when, as a parent, you understand this condition so that you can be able to educate other people to then be able to understand this condition, because otherwise it's going to be a challenge where he's going to remain with that stigma of people thinking he's mentally challenged.
That stigma, Joseph, and for parents who don't understand, and these kids end up being taken through all sorts of things because the parents themselves are trying to figure this thing out, and everybody's sending them around. And Esther, I wonder what advice you have for parents in as far as diagnosing the child is. So what kind of behaviors should they be looking out for so that they know they can, maybe consult a doctor? Because sometimes when you see behavior, you start saying, the kids are naughty, or, they start saying, this kid is bewitched, this kid is crazy. There are all sorts of things that come up because everybody's just trying to make a sense of why the kids or the little ones are different.
Thank you, Clement. And I think something that I want to pick up on from the previous caller is around language, that language is everything, that the language itself that we use to describe some difficulties that children face can feel like stigma, mentally challenged. What does that mean? So I think we need to firstly advocate for our children and correct people when they use incorrect language that is stigmatizing or derogatory, and actually name whatever condition it is so that people can educate themselves. But in terms of getting a diagnosis, I think firstly it starts with one's own observations and maybe even a parental instinct about something not being quite right, something being wrong, and being curious about your child and where they are at. Followed by that, depends what the condition is. There's such a wide range, but I think it's very good to consult with your GP, who may then make appropriate referrals, or to go to your primary healthcare center, who may then refer you to a psychologist or psychiatrist or neurologist, who will then do further assessments to see what the difficulty is and what the diagnosis is, so that you can then act accordingly.
Yeah.
But it is often a long process. Sorry, Clement. It is often a long process of assessments that can feel vulnerable making, that can feel invasive and exposing. And so it's really important to be honest about where you are, what your concerns are, and then to also allow for the vulnerability and to perhaps even name it as you go through that process.
How do you, when speaking of naming it, what kind of conversations do you have with the child with special needs? Because at some point they need to know that they're different. What language do you even use, and at what age do you start having this conversation with them?
It's such an important question. And, you said at some point they will know they are different. And most of the time, children are aware. They have a lot of self-awareness, and they may already notice differences between themselves and their peers. And I think the temptation often for parents, because it's so difficult and because it's such a painful thing to face, would be to turn a blind eye and pretend that there aren't any difficulties, which is probably a really unhelpful thing to do. And so I think having a conversation with your child when you feel able to, as early as possible, in a language that they will understand at their level. It wouldn't be helpful to kind of give very medical terms and describe something that would feel very abstract to them, but to have very ordinary language and ordinary conversations about what their difficulties may be, rather than turn a blind eye, because I think there's a lot of denial also that can feel like a lovely escape, rather than face the problem of, a child that may need further assistance.
True. All right, that takes us to exactly 11:30. Tamara, I see you, Tamara and Donald. I'll start with your calls after the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Bali, good morning. Maki, you are the one reading the news. Hi, good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Expelled ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool, who is due back in Cape Town on Sunday, says he has no regrets about the dramatic turn of events. The former Western Cape Premier was declared persona non grata by the U.S. on Friday after comments he made about the Trump administration in a dialogue irked U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. In a short text message to family and friends, Rasool has confirmed he's already packed and ready to make his way back home. Former accused turned state witness Laurentia Lombard says Kelly Smith told her the woman who took Jocelyn Smith wanted the child for her body parts. Lombard says she witnessed Smith sell her daughter to a sangoma for 20,000 rand. Smith, her boyfriend Jaquina Polis, and his friend Stefano van Rijn are charged with kidnapping and human trafficking for the little girl's disappearance. And the Philippine state is expected to conduct investigations into former President Rodrigo Duterte. The 79-year-old was arrested last week at the Manila airport on charges of crimes against humanity. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, most parts of Gauteng looking good at this hour. No accidents have been reported, all free-flowing on our highways. However, just look out, the traffic is a bit sluggish. That's leaving the Joburg CBD on a Main Reef Road approaching the M2. Look out for those faulty traffic lights in North Riding at Malibongo Drive and the N1. Four-ways traffic lights out of order at Witkoppen and Cedar. There's also traffic lights not working in the city of Tshwane. This is in Centurion at Roy Hayes Kraal Road and Eitzig. If you come across any other traffic issues, please SMS us on 31702. We are also on X at EWN Traffic.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app. We want to hear what you have to say.
Go to 702 Listens on primemediaplus.com and share your views.
We want to deliver more of what matters to you.
702 Listens.
Let's walk the talk.
Get more for your car. We Buy Cars will come to you and buy your ride wherever you are. Simply complete the form on webuycars.co.za for an offer. Your car could be worth more than you think. Looking for your next ride? Well, shop pre-loved vehicles on webuycars.co.za or any branch nationwide. Whatever you are buying or selling, visit We Buy Cars today.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Drive your success and trade like a champion. CFI, a global leading broker now in South Africa. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial is an authorized financial services provider.
CFI, empower yourself.
Take notes, sketch ideas, and sign documents on the go when you get the Samsung Galaxy Z Fold 6 from Vodacom, Mzansi's fastest 5G network. Get it for only 1,299 Rand per month over 36 months on our 4.8 gig Redcore plan. Enhance your deal when you trade in and save. Available in-store and online. T's and C's apply. Further together. Vodacom.
Gauteng, the powerhouse of South Africa. 1.6 trillion rand strong, 34% of SA's GDP. On the 3rd of April, the Gauteng Investment Conference is where big opportunities, bold ideas, and real deals converge. Business is flourishing, sectors are growing, connections are forged. Don't wait. Visit www.gic.ggda.co.za and pledge your investment.
702 took a close look at the 53rd annual Nedbank and Old Mutual Budget Speech Competition. And here are the highlights.
My experience has been great, to say the least. An opportunity of this magnitude is what any aspiring economist or economic student aims for. Nedbank and Old Mutual gave us the opportunity to exchange perspectives with some prominent economists, policymakers, and corporate leaders.
Sure.
Yeah, it's an opportunity I wouldn't have had I not entered the competition.
The Nedbank and Old Mutual Budget Speech Competition. Empowering Africa's future leaders on 702.
Your voice.
Your questions.
Your morning radio with Clement Manyathela.
This is 702.
25 minutes before 12 o'clock on our Family Matters feature this morning, we're discussing parenting a child with special needs. And I see your calls coming through. Tamara and Donald, I'll come to you in a moment as we continue this chat with Esther Chungu, who is joining us and giving us some advice and helping us navigate this. She's a psychoanalyst and executive director at Ububele Educational and Psychotherapy. But before we continue with our chat, let's quickly find out what's coming up on 702 Afternoons with Jonathan standing in for Relebohile Mabocha. How are you doing, Kabazela?
I'm good. Clem, yourself?
Sharp. What's popping today?
Lovely. So, bedtime. Most of us love bedtime for different reasons. Maybe you're just exhausted, like I was last night after a long golf tour weekend. Couldn't wait to get into bed. But for some of us, we procrastinate when we go to bed, and we have different reasons as to why we procrastinate before we go to bed. So I want to chat a little bit about that this afternoon and find out what time you go to bed and what are the reasons. Are you an early to bed person or a late to bed person? What about yourself? Do you go to bed early or late?
It depends. So I lately I go late because of work, and school. But trust me, every weekend I will go to bed early. I think on Saturday I went to bed at like 7 or 8. That's like
so no groove on Saturday night. It's bed.
No,
it's a corner of duvet and Pillow Street.
That's the corner where you'll find me. Yeah, but during the week it's mostly late, just before midnight or at the stroke of midnight.
Okay, cool. So we're going to chat to our listeners a little bit about that. Then Monday is always a regular feature slot on this show. We're going to do movies and what to stream with Adelaide Mueng, and she's a videographer and founder of Movies and Stuff SA. She's going to tell to us a little bit about some of the films that were at the Joburg Film Festival, so what to look out there. Travel feature with Gabby Brondani. This is an interesting one about wine tours, but these are wine tours on rivers and, doing the wine tours on boats. So that's pretty interesting. You don't have to drive yourself, so you can be on a boat and let loose. And then after 2 o'clock, we're going to do parenting and parents. And this is an interesting one about the Constitution and at what age should you start teaching your kids about the Constitution and knowing their rights, etc., because some of the stuff there could be a little bit difficult to navigate, especially with the corporal punishment things and hitting kids in your own home. So we'll be chatting about that. And then after the 2:30 news, we got the Naked Scientist, as always on a Monday, Dr. Chris Smith, who answers all of your questions. So get those in early as well. And that's the show.
All right, that's what's coming up. What did you shoot this weekend during your golf?
Oh, gosh. Golf tour, you never expect to play great golf.
Yeah.
So I went 93 on the Friday and then 94 on the Saturday.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I felt very rough on Saturday morning.
Where did you play?
Elements there in Limpopo. Very difficult course.
Is this the one where you get on a cart?
It's got a very high par 3.
Uh-huh.
Which you hit over a massive dam and then onto it like an island green.
Okay.
But very, very cool, but very tough.
All right.
I'm also not good on a hangover.
Kabazela, thank you so much. That's what's coming up on 702 Afternoons with Relebohile Mabocha. Well, Kabazela is standing in for Relebohile between 1 and 3 p.m.
702
Family Matters.
Right, we continue with your calls on 011-883-0702, and as we talk about children with special needs and parenting them and making sure that as guardians and parents we are ready and we are equipped to be able to care for them, to be able to protect them. Let's go to Tamara now, who's calling us from Johannesburg. Tamara, good morning.
Good morning. Hi.
Hi, Tamara. Go ahead.
Thank you so much for this lovely conversation. My friend actually called me in, Anne, and she said you need to listen to this because she's always on the lookout for me.
Yeah.
I have a daughter, 7 years old, special needs. She was diagnosed with hydrocephalus and spina bifida. So she's been at home now for the past 2 years, and I can relate to what the previous caller just called to talk about. The waiting list. It's been very, very hard. He's been at home now for the past 2 years. I don't know if you still have your special guest that can put in a word for us parents because it's very, very difficult. I'm a working mom, and now I have to, my child, she loves school. She has been in school since she was 3 months, and all of a sudden I had to take her out because she had passed the age limit. So now she's been at home for the past 2 years. If I take her to the normal school, the education officers, when they come through and they see her there, they get so upset they want to shut down the school. So I'm now caught in between a hard rock and the blue sea. So it's been very. If your special guest can really help us parents, she's been on the waiting list now for Casa de Sol for the past 2 years.
Sure.
So and I really can't really afford to. Yeah, 2 years. They said there's no space. There's nothing they can do. And I can't send her to a normal school because normal schools won't take her. And even if they take her, the educational officers threaten to shut down the school. So what do I do? And I don't have the means to really send her to a private school, which costs close to like 20,000 rand a month.
All right, Tamara, thank you so much for calling, and all the best. Esther, any other options you would advise Tamara about?
Yes, and firstly, I just want to empathize with your situation, Tamara. What a really difficult thing to have happen. And the sad reality is that it's not uncommon. I mean, even just our work at Ububele, we get so many parents coming in frustrated, not knowing where else to turn to because they just cannot get their child into a school. And the reality is there aren't enough resources for that. What I would suggest Tamara does is she can reach out to me so that we can guide her on an individual basis to try and see, if her child has received an assessment, what are the options, what the difficulties are, and what kind of special needs school was suggested. So I'd be happy to take a call from her after the fact.
Yeah, we'll do that. Maybe let's try link them there. I'll get the producers to work on that. Let's go to Donald now, who's calling from Pretoria. Donald, good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right, man. Go ahead.
Hey, this thing of kids with special needs, age limit is difficult. As a parent, it's very. I've got a son who's paralyzed from the waist down because of polio, and he's got a speech impairment. And he's only 4, and I can't get him to a normal crèche because of. They say they want to charge you more because he's depending on them and stuff. So we decided the mother must go. She was in varsity. She must go to varsity, and I'll stay at home and take care of him. But it's expensive, Clement. The diet that these kids need, we spend. It's now the second week. His diet, we buy his diet only, and then what we eat is only what we can get. If we just survive, but you make sure when you buy grocery, his grocery, remember, brown rice is very expensive, So the finance, if you are not working, because both of us are not working, the finance are very expensive, where you end up thinking this could be a punishment from God or something because we can go for weeks without food, but we just want what's best for him. We can go for days without proper meals and stuff, but we want him to have proper meals because he needs it more than us.
Yeah, where is he now, Donald? Is he in crèche now, or is he just staying with you for now?
He's staying with me for now because we can't afford to take him to crèche. It's what they're charging us, because other kids they only pay 450. But they want him to pay 1.2 because they say they'll change him and what. So you see, it's too much. So as a parent who's unemployed, you even we stay in a we are in a one room. We are here a one room. We are renting a one room.
Yeah, Donald, I got that, man, and I really sympathize whether the conditions there that you're describing, and how tough it is sometimes to just have meal on the table, and for a child with special needs who requires so much attention, so much a specific diet, that can be so much. Esther?
Sure, what a heartbreaking situation, Donald. And I firstly want to commend you. You know, men and fathers get a lot of slack about being absent, but here you are raising your child in these very impossible situations. And I just want to commend you on that. The financial burden of caring for a child with special needs, I think we definitely overlooked. So I'm so pleased that you brought that into the conversation. How much more is needed, and how difficult it is, like you say, when you're unemployed. I wonder if you've looked into organizations that work primarily with children with disabilities.
Donald?
Pretoria.
So sorry,
Yes.
Donald. Yeah, please repeat that.
I say I don't know any organizations around. I don't know any that we can connect ourselves with.
Where in Pretoria are you, Donald?
I'm in Pretoria, in Soshanguve.
Oh, in Soshanguve. Okay, yeah. Yeah, Esther?
Okay, we can definitely look into organizations that may work in that area. I don't know any at the top of my head, but we can do a little bit of scratching and try and connect Donald to a place that could probably offer him some support in his area.
Okay, yeah. What we'll do is we'll also connect Donald with you, Esther, and hopefully there can be a place that's found nearby that can assist in some way. Thank you for your call, Donald, and all the best. Tapelo, you are in Roodepoort. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement, and good morning to your guest. I don't have a question as such, but just a comment. Thank you for always going into the subject of special needs kids with special needs. You know, I have a child with cerebral palsy, non-verbal, on diaper 24 hours. And then, you know, the whole thing since the child she stayed now changed our life. And then, you know, it's not that easy. So for you making this show and then making people aware of this, it's very, very, very important. And then I know it's not for the first time you are on this subject. And then the other thing I would like to add is this, that for the people with maybe nannies or helpers, the other thing which I realized that it makes it easy with us, with our nannies, not having the nanny all the time. Like maybe if weekend we are available, we make sure the nanny goes away and then she has her own time. And then we took over. Or even if maybe one of us is there, then the nanny must go. At least, maybe work once a weekend, once a month in a weekend, so that she's not also tired because it's very, very busy schedule. And then,
sorry. And then what, Tapelo?
And then the other thing is about the school. At school, what I've realized is that they offer, they bring the guests like your guests there who come to school and then tell people what they can do, how can they deal with what the problems they have. But most of the people, they don't attend. But me, on my side, I've learned a lot. Like, one of the things which are, you know, they will make you think about is when I was attending there, then the child goes to school, but today she's here because she has flu. And then they told us that I became aware that the child will go to school until maybe she's 18. But after 18, this child will be staying with us full time, 24 hours. Then we have to find a way. Then how are we going with that? You know, it was okay, then there's something else which I was not aware. And then there's a lot of things they will make you aware of, even how to deal with kids, the kids, maybe within the family, then maybe there's a gathering, then we go with there's those 2-year-olds or 3-year-olds who will ask, "Uncle, is this your child? Where did you get her?" Because they see that there's something different with her, and then they will just ask questions randomly without any filter. They will just ask, and then they will teach you how to deal with those, and then being comfortable with them. You understand?
Yeah. Sure. Tapelo, thank you so much for sharing that with us. And Esther, I think he also raises an important thing about nannies, or if you have a helper who is also caring for a child with special needs, just make sure you are more intentional about giving them some time off, because that can take a toll.
Absolutely. And of course, it takes a toll on everybody involved in the care of a child who needs round-the-clock care, especially. And I think it's also important for parents to acknowledge that for themselves, right? To acknowledge your own exhaustion, your own burnout, your own need for support. But I really want to touch on something, Clement, if you'll allow me to. I'm just aware of time. But, I think we talk about children with special needs in a very kind of one-dimensional way, and we forget and neglect the fact that a child is whole and a person is whole. And it's important for parents to keep reminding themselves, or to look for and be curious and be intentional about noticing, what are my child's strengths and interests? What are they good at? What makes them shine? What do they enjoy? What makes them have a sparkle in their eye? And to build on those aspects of a child as well, and to not just see the child as someone who is unable to perform certain tasks, but to know that, your child is unique and there's goodness in your child, and capabilities and talents, and to really build on those and to promote those, because that's part of what it means to advocate for your child who has special needs.
Yeah. Okay, let's go to some WhatsApp voice notes now on 0727021702.
Hi, Clement. It's Katlego from Whitfield. Yeah. With access to school, we used to live in Northwest, where we had to move to Gauteng because there is a lot of schools support. Even stigma is quite less this side. So we had to do that for my son. I find that people here in Gauteng are very accommodative. Even where we live, people were very accommodative. Better than back there in Northwest. To a point that my church was able to do a special class for him, where he was taught by a professional during the time where he's supposed to be in primary at church. So I find it very helpful that one should have support, because we go through so much.
Morning, Clement and the team. I work at the higher education, one of the institutions, and I often have students who present with learning difficulties like ADHD and the like. And I had to come up with a strategy to help them be organized and attend to their schoolwork proactively. I developed a system called Automated Time Management Hack. I can actually share a link on the WhatsApp to share with anyone who wishes to implement that, because I did that with instruction and it helps students succeed exceedingly. And I help them know as to when they should take their medication, ADHD medication, and how they need to run their day. It is intertwined with check-in sessions where we reflect on what went right, what's going wrong. And I received an email from one of my students who was sharing to me that she actually graduated, who struggled with, who presented with learning difficulty. Thank you. Good show.
Thank you. Vezi, you are in 4 ways. Good morning.
Hi, good morning, Clement. How are you?
Good. How are you, Vezi?
Thank you for taking my call. I really appreciate it. I'm calling from the Inam Autism Advocacy Group. I've got a daughter that is autistic. She's 12 years old now, diagnosed at 2 years odd. It's more of a comment, really. I was in denial for a good 3 years. Ended up being depressed, severely depressed, because there's a misconception that autism, our kids that are on the spectrum are super smart, everything is hunky-dory, and that's not the case for every child. It is a spectrum after all. So we've had a lot of challenges. Inam being 12 now is, for example, going through the phase where she's now, on her period, and trying to teach a child on how to manage herself at 12 years old, and they have limited speech and understanding and comprehension of what it is to be on a menstrual cycle is really challenging. So for me, I just wanted to offer support to the parents, and that's why we started the foundation, to just say you're not alone, and if you can get into a support group, please do. There are a lot of expenses that we come across. Schooling, my child is homeschooled because I couldn't find a school for her, but just the whole process is, it's really a challenge depending on when your child is on the spectrum.
Sure, yeah. Can you just give us the details of the foundation, Vezi? How do people get in touch with you guys?
No, absolutely. So the website is www.inamfoundation.org. And really our job is bring awareness to the prevalence and existence of autism, particularly in communities where people don't understand. Like you made a comment where you could say a child is bewitched, or that's what the misconceptions out there, or they're just a slow learner, or it's fine, they will eventually talk. Some children are nonverbal, and that is what it's going to be. And people that go out and say, oh, no, don't worry, there is a cure for autism, that is not the case. Once you're autistic, you are autistic. So we just want to bring awareness, and we've hosted a couple of workshops, especially in underprivileged areas, to bring awareness to the existence of autism.
Yeah, that's great. Great work there, Faizi, what you guys are doing there at Inam Foundation. Thank you for calling us and for sharing your story with us. Esther, just as we wrap up the conversation, any last words to the parents? I'm realizing that we should have part 2 of this conversation where we focus on adults with special needs, because I'm getting lots of messages on the WhatsApp line about adults listening and saying, I have special needs, and they're sharing their experiences even now as adults, where they also struggle with finding jobs. Some are talking about the trauma that they went through, where they remember how their parents started resenting them for being different. And I think that perhaps is a conversation, is part 2 of the conversation that we'll have. But go ahead, any last words?
Yes, I think even that is indicative of the fact that so many people live with difficulties and disabilities and challenges and special needs that go undiagnosed, and how difficult it must be to then find yourself as an adult and you've navigated your whole life with something that was unnamed and undiagnosed, and just having to manage and realize now. So I think these conversations are really important. I'm so grateful to the people that called, that opened up this conversation a bit further. And I just want to say, Ububele Education and Psychotherapy Trust is there to stand in the gap. And if you can find us on ububele.org to reach out if you need any further parenting support in this regard.
Yeah, thank you so much, Esther, for guiding us through this chat. She's a psychoanalyst and executive director at Ububele Education and Psychotherapy. Please go check it out. Ububele spelled Ububele. It's 3 minutes now before 12 o'clock.
Aubrey Masango.
Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight.
A state visit by Zelensky next month. What does this mean for us in South Africa?
I will say one thing, though, when it comes to Zelensky visit. I think that your president understands very well that Russia has been a significant disruptive force on the African continent. Coups have happened under, the tutelage of the Russians in South Africa. I think it has to keep Russia at an arm's length distance, simply because of how devious Vladimir Putin is.
Peter Zalmaier.
Aubrey Masango.
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
Looking for the perfect destination for your next escape? Well, the At Collection is where it's at. At Franschhoek Hotel, a boutique retreat where elegance meets nature lets you unwind in the heart of the winelands while enjoying gorgeous vineyards, views, and craft beer. At Senton Hotel is where business meets leisure with a private cinema, luxury spa, and world-class dining, all in Johannesburg's prime location. 2 destination, 1 collection. Book now at franschhoek-hotel.com or senton-hotel.com.
Dear Journal, day 3045 of trying to be an adult. I can't figure out the secret to working, cooking, cleaning, exercising, socializing, and sleeping all in one day. It's exhausting. Maybe the answer is to do it all f***ing terribly.
Got evicted from the family home? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's like 570 Rand a month, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
At Zero, we know there's nothing small about small business. It's starting from scratch. It's the hustle. It's the 9 to 5 and the 5 to 9. We don't think of you as small. We think of you as self-made. Zero, accounting software for self-made business.
All right, coming up next, the Midday Report with Mandy Wiener. How are you doing?
I'm well, thanks, and you?
What's popping today?
President Ramaphosa has been speaking, as you would have heard on the Clement Manyathela show, about Ibrahim Rasool returning home this week and our relationship with the US. So we'll get some analysis on that. SASSA and the Post Office giving an update on that black card switchover, just 3 days to go. Kelly Smith's sister is testifying in the Jocelyn Smith trial. Parliament's social media accounts were hacked in a crypto scam over the weekend.
Oh.
Yeah.
Any information that was compromised?
We'll try and understand exactly what happened. But if you want any dollar Ramaphosas on crypto, you can get them on Parliament's social media.
Oh, in his couch. Okay.
And then we'll wrap up the weekend sports.
Yeah.
Lando.
Lando. I love Lando. Okay, that's what's coming up. I must leave if I get into trouble. That's what's coming up on the Midday Report with Mandy Wiener. Thank you for listening to the Monday edition of the show. We'll be back again tomorrow between 9 and 12. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon, I'm Mikey Malapo. Expelled ambassador to the United States, Ibrahim Rasool, who is due back in Cape Town on Sunday, says he has no regrets about the dramatic turn of events. The former Western Cape Premier was declared persona non grata by the US on Friday after comments he made